And look who's coming out to hit.
For the Cardinals, batting for Baker, number 50, Adam Wainwright.
It's not a game that's not meaningful, but at the end of the day, it didn't have an impact on the league one way or another. We are in the entertainment business. They pay to see something, and they got to see it today. And it's a good way to send him off. He enjoyed the heck out of it. You're handing the ball to your closer with the one-run lead. You feel good about it. So it all worked out really well. I'm glad he had the opportunity.
Very taken aback, very honored, very. I feel just as blessed as I've ever felt in my whole life. So. Yeah, I kept looking at Steven and I go, "Are you sick of me yet, man?" I'm kind of sick of me right now. Like, but you know what? I'll remember these 3 days for the rest of my life.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That was a cool scene yesterday out of Busch Stadium. I was able to go there. We took Luca to his first ever Cardinals game, and he got to see Adam Wainwright's final game in a Cardinals uniform. The pregame ceremony was everything you expected it to be. Adam Wainwright was there. Of course, they ended up having Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols available. Chris Carpenter told some heartwarming stories as well. Bill DeWitt III got the family their puppy, which is fantastic. Waino's been telling his family for years, hey, whenever I decide to retire, you guys are getting a puppy.
Yeah, side note. I don't know if I want somebody else buying my puppy.
I think it was his wife that actually
so they
got
picked
the puppy.
it out. Okay,
Yeah.
She's the one who brought it out of the dugout, right?
I was like, that's wild.
She
if
named it, so I'm guessing they had decided the whole...
That would have been wild to just like walk out and be like, hey, here's your puppy. Be like, whoa, I think I need to pick this one out, right?
We need to do this as a family.
All 5 of my kids are like, that's not the puppy we wanted, Daddy.
You could tell the moment that puppy came out, by the way, kids no longer interested in anything the dad was doing that day.
Bleep this, Dad. I'm going to be in the back with the dog.
A cool day. I enjoyed it. It was great to be out there at the ballpark, and you couldn't have asked for a better day for a baseball game as well. Alex, yesterday, though, marked the end of a Cardinals era. Yadi and Albert got their send-off last year. I honestly kind of forget about the send-off because that team was really the focal point of the end of the year last year because the games mattered. And then chased for 700 was so significant that almost the send-off became secondary to the 700. This one was different because the Cardinals stink. This one was different, and I'm not saying this flippantly, because the Cardinals were completely out of the race, so much so that the games over the weekend did not matter, and it was just a celebration of Adam Wainwright. And that's fine once. You can't do this again in the future. First of all, there's nobody else to do it with. And second of all, if this happens in the future, man, fans already yesterday booed John Mozeliak as he walked to the podium. Credit to Mo, saying, I thought you guys were saying Newt. Good line. Good line by John Mozeliak.
Yeah, nice way to save that one, Mo.
Question, was that prepared or was that just...
Absolutely prepared. 100% prepared.
Yeah, come on now. It's like Gary Bettman when he walks up to the podium. You know that's coming.
Alex, what was your impression yesterday of the scene out of Busch Stadium and watching Adam Wainwright, who you've watched your entire life, from your childhood on to where you are today?
Yeah.
Take the field as a hitter one last time.
I mean, look, it was emotional, and I know that sounds weird to say, especially coming from a guy who was completely checked out of this Cardinals team. I have not watched Cardinals games other than kind of popping in and out since football started. I know, seems odd to say, but you know what? When you're at 90 losses on a season, that's going to happen to you. But I tuned in yesterday. I chose to watch that game, the pregame ceremony, the game itself, all the way up until the ending over football because it was the end of that era. And as much as it's the end of the Adam Wainwright era, I think the reason last year didn't sink in the way that this one sunk in was because I, as a Cardinals fan, knew I had one more year of Waino. You had one more year, no matter what it was going to be, of the final piece of a championship caliber squad puzzle. And now that he's gone, now it's all gone. Now you don't have those guys that you can sit back and say, hey, remember 2006? Hey, remember 2011? And you had that with Pujols and Yadi. What a moment that was last year when they went out together. But you were clinging on to all of those memories of success with the Cardinals with Adam Wainwright. And that's why I think it hits so close to home for me, realizing that you're not going to see him take the mound every fifth day anymore. You're not going to see those moments of Adam Wainwright. You're not going to hear him talking about the team. It is a new era of Cardinals baseball, and for somebody that saw it from when he stepped into the league all the way up until yesterday, yeah, it was a little emotional.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch it. It's not to say that Waino didn't deserve to get that kind of treatment, that the Cardinals did it wrong. Waino absolutely deserved it, and the Cardinals handled it perfectly yesterday. The puppy, nice cherry on top. but I just had no interest in watching it this year. I don't know if it was because I saw the Pujols-Cincotti one last year, and I was locked in on that one.
It's funny because we had the opposite reactions to this.
But I think the reason I enjoyed
you
that
have no
one
emotional
more,
bones in your body.
well, no, but like I grew up watching Albert Pujols, and I know Waino was part of that team, but it was Albert's team. And watching Albert get the send-off, had already hit 700 home runs, and honestly, that team was just much more entertaining to watch than this one.
I mean, they were good. This one's bad.
Very true.
And because Albert had a great year, great end to his career, it made it more fun to watch that team also. This year with Waino, like, look, credit to him, and look, we celebrated the 200 wins, and that's a hell of an accomplishment. But he had a bad year. The Cardinals had a bad year. I just had no interest in the ceremonies yesterday. In fact, my biggest takeaway from the ceremonies was what you mentioned, and that I've never heard the Cardinals fan base boo John Mozeliak. And I see all the ish that gets thrown at John Mozeliak on our text line here at 101 ESPN the 3 or 4 years I've been here. I've never heard him get booed out in public, though. And he got
Not
booed.
like that. You hear it occasionally with like there's a few guys that are next to you that have had a couple too many to drink, and they're like, boo! You don't hear it the way that you did the other day.
Not enough to where he hears it and has to make the comment of,
I
thought you were saying Newbar.
Man, like being in that park, you could feel the vitriol that was being sent towards him. And that doesn't happen typically with the people that are paying customers going to the games.
Yeah, and it happened with the DeWitt family as well. Now,
That's
it wasn't
the part that was surprising, too,
It
though.
wasn't as loud as it was for Mo. At least it didn't come off on the screen that way, but you could still hear it. And I think that was the most telling part of the ceremony for me. Because, again, I just didn't have the interest in it because the team's bad. But hearing that reaction to John Mozeliak and the DeWitt family heading into such a crucial offseason was all I needed to know of the angst of the fan base. And look, we've known that was here for the last couple of years with their playoff exits. But a year in which they lost 90-plus games and a team that was very disappointing that had playoff aspirations, to end with the ceremony, but the ceremony being more the focus for me, was the booing that hit front office personnel.
I agree. And I think it speaks to the pressure that this team is under going into the offseason. They got to get it right, man. And we saw the quotes yesterday from Ollie Marmol. We'll get to these a little bit more and extended coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. But he said all the right things yesterday. Everything you as a Cardinals fan would want to hear. He said, hey, it starts and stops with us. We understand that we are going to be held accountable for what happened this year. He wants that pressure put on his job. Mo spoke publicly and said, hey, we need to get this turned around. They all view this as a one-off. They view this as this happened. It was horrible. We made the necessary moves at the deadline to be able to move on from some of our pending free agents. Like, they all believe they're headed in the right direction. Now they got to do it. And this is the hard part. It's easy to say all of the right things right now, right? Hey, we're going to be better next year. We're going to go get the necessary talent. But we've heard all of that before. Now it's about going out there and actually spending the money, trading the right players, betting on the right bounce-back candidates. All of these things have to happen during the offseason, and yesterday was the latest reminder of that. When Adam Wainwright is being celebrated and your president of baseball operations and your owner are being booed in that same ceremony, that is telling. And when you see guys like Albert and Carp and Yachty, these are the guys that are TLR. These are the guys that are celebrated for the success that they had here in St. Louis. I mentioned this a few months ago, and I think that it is something that is noteworthy. This is going to be the first time for the Cardinals that they will go into a season without anybody in uniform that went to a World Series in a Cardinals uniform in 20 years. The last time this happened was 2003. Now, on those teams, you had guys that eventually became superstar talents that were World Series heroes here in St. Louis. But it's been 20 years since they've gone into a season like this. From 1968 to 1975, they had Gibby. From 75 to 79, you had Lou. And then there was a 2-year stretch from 80 to 81 where you didn't have anybody in uniform that had gone to a World Series in a Cardinals uniform. Then from 82 to 96, you had Ozzie Smith on every one of those teams that had been here and had played in a World Series. Willie did it from 97 to 99. Albert from 04 to 11. Waino was the through line from 12 to 23. Now you got nobody. This is a different era of Cardinals baseball, and it begins today. And it begins with them making the right and necessary adjustments, Alex.
And I really think that's where the emotion for it all came. You always had that fallback. You always had that fallback of like, yeah, but at least they have that leadership. Yeah, they might not have the most talented bunch, but they've got the leadership. They've got the experience. Waino, Yachty, Pujols, these guys. Now that's all gone. Now the part that I find so intriguing, and I guess which was so difficult to come to terms with that Waino was done, was now you're relying on guys that haven't been there. Now you're relying on either a younger group of players that you've drafted and hopefully developed into becoming superstars, the Walkers, the Gormans, maybe the Mason Wins, and now you're relying on other teams' products to take this team to the promised land, and that's Goldie and Arenado. And frankly, that's why I asked the question about a month ago, like now that Waino's gone, does this team take on a whole new identity? Because you don't have that OG player in the clubhouse anymore that has been there, done that to say he's the guy. T-Bone, you know what OG means?
I do. I'm actually impressed that you use that reference.
I'm a kid at heart, my man. I'm a kid at heart. 33 going on 13. Now it's Goldie and Arenado, who haven't been to a World Series. Now those are the players that you're looking towards. Frankly, you're going to be looking towards Wilson Contreras, who might be a left fielder or a DH or a catcher for this team. That's the problem in all of this. That's the part that I do find very fascinating about this upcoming offseason.
T-Bone, you got to sit this part out because you're not old enough to be a part of the conversation.
You're not an OG. You're a YG.
Alex, did you feel old yesterday?
Absolutely.
Well, hey, hold on. I am a part of this conversation because most of these guys that we're about to mention, I saw their primes and I can kind of remember it.
Yeah, but you weren't alive when they were drafted.
And you weren't around for like the beginnings of their career in the way that Alex and I were.
We're talking about play. I thought you were talking about when I got out of bed and go,
I felt that way running my half marathon yesterday. Waino, Miguel Cabrera. Apparently
Miggy.
Brandon Crawford is retiring. Did anybody know this prior to yesterday?
Brandon Crawford did it himself. He said, you know what? I'm going out with nothing.
I loved Brandon Crawford.
I did too.
Absolutely loved. I mean, I hated him, but I respected the hell out of him. Zach Greinke retiring at the end of the season. Terry Francona is done. Joey Votto might be joining them as well. We'll see on Clayton Kershaw.
Mad Bum's career basically ended this year.
Dusty Baker probably is going to run it back again.
I am watching the end right now. We are watching the end. If you are around our age, Alex, 30-ish, 30 to 35 years old, these are the guys that were like entering the league as you really became a fully formed person, right? Like you're 12, 15 years old, and these guys are like starting to hit their stride. So you've watched in your conscious life their entire careers. And now you're seeing them come to an end. And I got to be honest, as I watched their baseball mortalities take place yesterday, I felt my own mortality right out in front of me. And it was a weird feeling.
Did you hear the Grim Reaper calling your name watching all these guys?
Dude, it was strange. I was like, damn, I'm having kids. I've got a house. Like, I'm watching.
My back hurts when I sit down.
All of the guys that I was watching growing up are retiring
Got
from
irritable
baseball.
bowel syndrome.
It's a weird feeling, man.
Personally, though, it's like a sweet feeling to like know that I saw, because you hear the stories all the time of your parents that talk about, it's like, oh yeah, you don't know what you got to see with this guy. I got to watch him growing up. You only saw maybe highlights or the tail end of that career. It is kind of, I don't know, a satisfying feeling knowing that we saw the start and end of all of these careers.
Absolutely.
Like I still remember the Zach Greinke rookie year that he put out and performed.
Oh, buddy. If you think that I don't remember that fondly, it was the only thing that I had to latch on to as a
BK
young
actually threw a parade that year for some reason.
Wasn't even very good.
But like I remember,
terrible.
I remember the Miguel Cabrera trade.
Got $5 tickets to sit down the first baseline that year on a Greinke day.
You know how many hot dogs you could get for $5?
They had it was $1 dog
Well,
day.
it makes sense. It was $1 dog day. That's $5 for T-Bone. But like I remember the Miguel Cabrera trade and like how up in arms people were about that. That is the satisfying part, at least for me, to know that you saw the start and end of these guys' careers.
No, screw that. I felt old and I didn't even see the beginning of those guys' careers.
You got to embrace age.
I remember Votto in his prime. I remember Miggy chasing the Triple Crown in the early, 2010s, I guess it was.
Yeah, but you don't remember him in Florida.
Nah,
You don't remember the Marlins, Miggy.
I remember Greinke not as a Royal, but I can remember his career outside of Kansas City before he kind of hit the age wall there and hit that aging curve. I remember Crawford in those 2010s teams with San Francisco. Like, I remember these guys. and it was great to watch. I wish I saw the beginning of like Miggy's career, but it made me feel old, and I'm not even your guys' age. So screw that. I got to see the beginning. No, it made me feel old, and I didn't like it.
It's just going to get worse from here, my man.
Yeah, no doubt. That's Tanner Hendrickson. He's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Plenty to get to between now and the end of the show today. Katie Wu was a part of the scrum yesterday talking with Ollie Marmol when Ollie made some really interesting comments about the kinds of people that he wants inside of that clubhouse and what the Cardinals need to do this offseason to get back on track in 2024. We'll get her thoughts on that and the Wayno-Palooza from the weekend. We'll get to all of that coming up in about 30 minutes or so. But coming up next, whoo, baby, if you're watching on YouTube, you know I've got my On Saturdays We Drink t-shirt on. It's a celebration Monday for the Missouri Tigers.
Wait till you see what he wears tomorrow.
And it's a pitiful Monday for the Illinois Fighting Illini. We'll talk about it all coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
looking in zone, looking for Burden. Burden! He's got glue on those hands. And that's Theo Weiss, bottom of the formation. End zone, money time. Luther Burden cannot be stopped.
Man, he's a baller, gamer, leader, warrior, everything you want in the quarterback. And it just makes everybody on the whole team just want to play for him.
Yeah, I just feel like he a dog. You know, he's the best leader. You know, I've been around, and sure, he going to do whatever it take to win.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That audio courtesy of SEC Network. Missouri with a 38-21 win over the weekend against Vanderbilt. If your team is currently undefeated, you raise your hand. You raise your hand. T-Bone, you put that hand down right now.
That's 5 wins, T-Bone. 5 wins.
I'm a secret Washington fan, so I can raise my hand.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going for you over the weekend.
They didn't cover
buddy.
over the weekend.
Yeah, well.
Losers.
Alex.
Brandon.
I'm a believer. I am a true believer. Capital T, capital B.
You can't spell believe without E-L-I. Eli.
I don't know if you had that one pre-prepared.
I
didn't actually, but when you said believe, I'm like, hey, that's
fine.
there.
I'm not going to lie. It took me a minute to figure out what E-L-I spelled.
Don't go his full name because then you really can't spell a lot, believe without it. Sorry, I blew you.
What were you talking about?
The reason why I'm a believer is because Brady Cook has emerged as a legitimate quarterback for the first time with Eli Drinkwitz, and really the first time since you had Drew Lock leave campus. Missouri has a quarterback that is as good, if not better, than just about everybody they're going up against in the SEC this year. Now, this is also a down year for quarterbacks in the SEC. You look over in the Pac-12, like, does Brady Cook compare to Caleb Williams? Well, no. Michael Penix, no. But nobody does. Very few do. Brady Cook, what he's doing this year, dude, is nothing short of remarkable. In his last 3 games, he's completed 74 of 104 pass attempts. And in the past 3 games, he's 17 for 24 when throwing the ball at least 15 yards in the air. That used to be his weakness. He didn't throw it deep. And now you've got Luther Burden and Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper and this Marquise Johnson guy who's come out of nowhere to emerge as a legit deep threat over the last couple of games. Dude, Mizzou's good. And they've got some real weapons offensively. I don't know what happened with the defense in the fourth quarter in that game against Vandy. It was ugly, but whatever. I'm going to set that to the side. Game was basically determined at that point. They're going to have a shot this weekend against LSU, and it's because of what this offense has proven it's capable of.
I watched the LSU game because that was the only thing that was on during the Blues preseason game on Saturday, and watching LSU's defense play against Ole Miss, with this offense that Mizzou has shown, they absolutely have a chance in that one. I mean, Brady Cook, look, people are saying Heisman watch. Like,
hell yeah.
Pump the brakes a little bit here. I mean, I'm a big...
I'll support it.
See, look, he's trying to jump on the bandwagon. You just can't do it, man.
You know what? We're welcoming everybody. All comers. Come on in.
I'm not rooting for Mizzou, but I'll root for Brady Cook. That guy got booed.
That's true.
At his home stadium. What
it would
the
be
hell?
so amazing if that guy won the Heisman. He's not going to, but if he won the Heisman, God,
at least be in the conversation, which would just be impressive in itself. But look, I was very critical of Drink and the offense after, what was it, that second or third game, saying like there's no creativity with it. And then boom, all of a sudden from K-State on, we're looking at a high-powered offense, and one of the more entertaining ones right now in the SEC for how they can air it out, the speed that they have in these receivers. And then I've mentioned this before, but the multiple ways that they can go about this, because Brady's got the wheels to pick up first downs if he needs to. We've seen Schrader have the success in the running game. The offensive line needs to figure out their penalty flag issues.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, any defense right now in the SEC, Mizzou's got a shot against if you have this type of playmaking.
And I think the best thing I can say about Brady Cook is going into this season, I thought for sure this team was going to be like the Illini last year, where it was you had a great defense, and all you needed Cook to do was be a game manager. He's not a game manager. He can beat you with the deep ball. And I think that's the best thing that I can say about Brady Cook is they can open up the offense because they trust him. I thought if you were to open this offense up at the beginning of the year, like they have the last couple of games, I would have told you, I don't know what you're going to get out of Cook. You know, I think he may risk it a little too much. I think he may be a guy that turns the ball over, and that's the one thing you can't have happen. No, he's willing to take those deep shots. What did you say, 17 for 24 on, what was that, 15-yard, 20-yard passes lately? Like, that's incredible. Like, that opens up everything for an offense. So he's not just a game manager anymore like I thought he was going to be. He's a guy that's a threat, and he can beat you, not so much with his legs anymore because he's dealing with the injury, but he's able to throw the ball deep down the field. Mizzou's got the weapons and Luther Burden to do that. That's a difference maker. I didn't think they were going to get this from this offense this year.
All right, and you mentioned Luther Burden. We got to discuss him. Holy bleep.
My
dude.
man is highlight reel every week.
Whatever you thought he was going to be capable of doing at Missouri, he's been more. This year is as impressed as I've ever been by a Missouri wide receiver, and there's a reason for that. According to Tom Orff, who's a Mizzou historian, he has the most receiving yards through Missouri's first 5 games of a season ever. Nobody has ever put together more receiving yards through 5 games than what Luther Burden has done so far this year. In fact, he's the first Mizzou wide receiver to have at least 100 yards in 4 straight games since Denario Alexander did so back in 2009 when he went on a historic finish to that season. What we are witnessing right now is a guy who has emerged as ESPN.com had an article earlier today by our guy Bill Connolly. He said he's the best sophomore in the country, and I think that's true. Maybe if you've got somebody that you want to throw out that you think is better, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Feel free to do so. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen anybody that I've been more impressed with this year as a sophomore than what we're watching right now from Luther Burden. This guy is just different, man. He is physical. He is winning at the catch point. He's winning contested catches now. He's going deep. He's winning on screens. He's making people look like they have bad angles. He does everything. Like, it is legitimately like watching Deebo Samuel, but in college. Like this version of Deebo Samuel, but in college and with good health. You talked about Brady Cook, like the Heisman hype for him. The guy that's actually probably going to get some hype for like postseason awards is Luther Burden, because he's one of the best players in the country.
Does he get more hype next year? Like, this year, if he goes off, next year, I wonder if, like, you're in top 3 conversation if you continue to do this.
It's so hard for any wide receiver to get into that conversation.
Because I just looked up Devontae Smith and what he did, and like we talked about,
2,000 yards.
You got to be special teams also with that. But, I mean, from what we're seeing this season with Luther Burden that might not have clicked in the first 2 games of the year and now is going off, by the end of the season, you got to wonder if he's like on the pre-Heisman watch for next season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he'll be one of the best players in the country that's returning to college football next year. Full stop.
Then they'll get Ryan Wingo. Game over, T-Bone.
I mean, forget the upcoming recruiting class. This is what's so fun about what we're watching right now. It's not about the future anymore. Like, Eli Drinkwitz has made it possible that what we are now worrying about is the present. The future, they've got the top recruit in the country with Williams Nwaneri already committed. Now we can finally, for the first time since Drink got on campus, focus on the upcoming weekend, which, by the way, Missouri is a 6.5-point underdog against LSU. You guys know I'm the worst sports bettor in the history of the world. We'll get to that coming up later on in the show today.
Who are you taking in that one, Brandon?
I love the Tigers.
Which one?
Yeah, exactly.
Tigers. Straight up.
I can't believe it's a 6.5-point line. That's nonsense. LSU has a horrible defense. Now LSU's offense is really good. The over in that one, I think, is set at 63.5. I take the over.
Yeah, it's going over.
I take the over, and I will take Missouri plus the points. I don't know if Missouri wins outright. I'll be picking them to win outright, but I love them plus 6.5. That's way too many points in a game like this. I want to get to your team, though, T-Bone.
Well, it's not as sunshine and lollipops over here on this side of the board.
So last year, it was the opposite of this discussion, where you were thrilled. You're like, we're exceeding every possible expectation.
Wanted to jump on my bandwagon.
Brett Bielema has this like identity of the team that he's been trying to build. You've got this defensive coordinator that you're super excited about. Now the defense coordinator's gone. He just whooped your ass this past weekend. How you feeling, T-Bone?
Not great. Not great. I said this in the office, and I truly believe this because they're not good at anything, Illinois. I think this is the beginning of the end for Brett Bielema and his time with the Illini, because he's not a strong recruiter, and you knew that when you hired Brett Bielema. Illinois football program knew that. He's not a strong recruiter, and having a year like this sets him back 2-3 steps. And this was a year that he even came into the year saying, I think this team's good. 8 wins was kind of the aspiration. They're terrible at everything. They're bottom 25 in offense and defense. Defensively, they can't stop the pass. They can't get pressure on the quarterback. They can't stop the run. Offensively, they can't pass block. They can't get their wide receivers open. They can't run the football. They're genuinely bad at everything. And I think there's a legitimate shot they don't get to 6 wins this year and aren't bowl eligible. I think this is potentially the beginning of the end of the Brett Bielema area. I'm not saying they're going to fire him after this year, but I could see where this is just the beginning of what becomes a snowball effect, and then they are bad 2-3 years from now, and they end up moving on from Brett Bielema. This has been a very disappointing year for the Illini football program, and I thought about 7 to 8 wins was what the expectation should be.
Would you say that Bielema's at the end of the road?
Not there yet.
Oh, okay. Don't cue the music then.
Yeah,
Just cut away from that.
Sometimes football is easier than we make it out to be. They got it wrong at quarterback. Like, that's the truth of the matter. They messed up the offensive line. It's not as good this year as it was last year. The defense hasn't come together the way that you would have hoped. But really, it's as simple as their quarterback is not he's giving the ball to the other team too often. He's throwing too many picks. He's got 7 interceptions so far this year. If you are going to live like that, you're going to have some troubles putting together consistent opportunities offensively. And that's what's happened to Illinois this year. Because last year you had a running game that you could lean on, and you had a quarterback that was going to manage the game in a way that allowed you to have an opportunity to win regularly. This year you don't have either of those two things.
And I actually don't think Altmaier's been that much of the problem. Take away the Penn State game where they just got obliterated and he had to start throwing and he had no time ever. He's 5 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Like, he's been better than what his numbers show. Problem is he just has no time. And now, yes, you would say that even though he has no time, he does have to play better. But he does have legs that he can utilize better than what DeVito did. He can hit the deep ball better than DeVito did. I actually don't think he's been the problem. Like, I would feel comfortable coming back with him as the starter next year. Okay. They've got to improve the offensive line. I can't tell you how many times I watched that game on Saturday in which he gets the ball. By the time he does his 2-step drop, there's a guy in his face already. He can't throw with this offensive line, and they can't run with this offensive line.
Fair.
I think that is the main problem, is Bielema came into the year so high on this O-line that he had, and really the trenches. They thought the O-line and the D-line was going to be good, and they've got an NFL prospect on the D-line in Newton. Outside of that, though, it's been abysmal. It's been terrible, and I think it's the number one focal point to why things have gone so awry for them.
44-19 against Purdue. Against Purdue, man?
And they were favored. I just saw their own 5 against the spread this year. Guys, they've played FAU, Toledo, and they can't cover
Toledo
those
was good.
games. Yeah.
Toledo was
Good teams win. Great teams what, T-Bone?
Cover.
And not the Illinois team.
Oh, we
Can't even cover the offensive players.
We can't win.
Your problem is that unlike where we were at last year as a Missouri fan, we had hope of, okay, well, the recruiting's good. Maybe the talent starts to get back to the level that you were hoping for. The defense is good. Like, you could point to individual pieces of, like, okay, they've got the X, Y, and Z as to how it could come together next year. Even if you were pessimistic, it's there. If you're bullish on Illinois, what is the take?
I don't have one.
Yeah.
I
just
don't know.
told you,
because to your point there, good recruiting can mask bad coaching. Good coaching can't really mask bad recruiting. Like, it's tough.
Not in this Big Ten.
Yeah, and the way that Bielema builds is typically we're going to run the football. And I'm not saying, like, he never brings in any talent. He had a really talented team last year. But it is really tough for him to really coach up a team that is very underwhelming in the recruiting that he has done. And I think that's kind of been the theme for this year.
Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters, including an interesting report that just came out about Deshaun Watson. No, it's not off the field. It's on the field. We'll talk about it coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Taylor Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals win their regular season finale yesterday 4-3 over the Cincinnati Reds as they finish the season 71-91 on the year. And the MLB playoffs will start tomorrow. And you can hear some MLB playoff games here on 101 ESPN tomorrow as we'll have Phillies and Marlins Game 1 with pregame coverage starting at 6:30. But tonight we've got Blues back in action as they take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Alex Ferrario, Joey Vitale at pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock tonight. And then Chris Kerber will join Joey for Puck Drop at 6. This Sports Center update was run by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. We'll get to questions and answers here in just a few minutes. Katie Wu at the top of the hour alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. All right, let's start with this. Some news from the NFL. Kevin Stefanski, the Cleveland Browns head coach, is meeting with reporters right now. Deshaun Watson missed the game yesterday due to a shoulder issue. Kevin Stefanski just told the media that Deshaun Watson was, quote, medically cleared to play on Sunday. Alex, why would you say that if you're the head coach?
Because everybody understand my job's safe. I told Deshaun we wanted him to play in the game, and well, didn't work out that way.
Yeah,
that's what I'm reading in between the lines there. He was medically cleared. We were preparing for Deshaun Watson to play, but that did not go our direction. So don't be upset about the 3 points we put up against Baltimore.
I will say this: Deshaun Watson has not earned any of my benefit of the doubt. Therefore, I don't feel bad going ahead and reading into this a bit. When your head coach is saying this, he's telling the public he chose not to play. We wanted him to play. He chose not to play. So blame him. If you got any questions about why he didn't play, go ahead and go ask the quarterback whenever he's made available to the media later on this week. That's a him question, not a me question. He's basically blaming Deshaun Watson for them losing the game yesterday. That is essentially what he is doing. Now, if you're Deshaun, if I was coming to his defense, which I'm not, but if I was, I would say, yeah, my shoulder wasn't right. And I don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish, and go out there and end up getting my shoulder hurt even worse for later on this season when the Browns view themselves as a contender this season. Whether you agree or not doesn't much matter, but I understand that perspective to a degree. His coach coming out and saying this speaks to larger issues potentially that exist between Watson and the head coach, though.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And I would say that I'm assuming Stefanski's probably even more upset because he probably would have had the thought process of, get through this week, we've got the bye next week. And Watson probably took the opposite stance of, well, hey,
it's 2 weeks to get
off
ready.
Gives me more opportunity to get healthy. So, yeah, this speaks to a larger issue that you've seen. Yeah, that's what makes this worse. When you said this during the break and told us what this was, I went, oh, man, they have the bye next week, and Stefanski now saying this. Yeah, he basically said Watson gave up and didn't want to play in that week.
And the other thing is, like, if you're Watson and you know you're not going to play, tell them earlier in the week so they can put together a game plan for DTR, a quarterback who has zero experience in the NFL. So he put his team in a really big bind. They end up losing 28-3 against the Baltimore Ravens. All right, let's get to some NFL quick hitters here, Alex. Most impressive win of the weekend in your mind was what?
Man, I think the obvious answer here would be the Bills winning against the Dolphins, but I was very impressed by the Houston Texans.
Yep.
I mean, to be able to put up 30 points on the Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh Steelers defense on top of C.J. Stroud looking legit. I mean, I don't think the Texans are going anywhere, but that's significant improvement from a couple of weeks ago when all of us just assumed that they were going to be drafting in the top of the draft once again. So it's obvious that it's the Bills, but man, the Texans were impressive to me.
Because I agree, it is obviously the Bills. I think the Buccaneers. I don't know if they're a good football team yet still. You know, they're 3-1. I think they might be the team to beat in the South, though. Like, I have not been impressed with Atlanta. Clearly, they don't trust Desmond Ridder, and he's been awful this year. New Orleans.
So bad.
New Orleans, 9 points again. This offense is kind of sputtering along with Derek Carr. Now, look, he's
not right.
I was just about to say, there is the caveat. He's dealing with the shoulder issue right now. He was healthy early on, and that offense still wasn't all that impressive. So
this Bucs train's about to come to a screeching halt.
That's why I said, I don't know if they're a good team, but that was a dominant win. That was 26-9. Baker looked good. White looked good around the football. They've got Godwin and Evans still. Now, Evans dealing with a bit of a hamstring thing, it looks like. So, I don't know if they're a good football team.
Detroit, Atlanta, Buffalo, at Houston, Tennessee, at San Francisco, at Indianapolis. That's their upcoming schedule.
You think the Buccaneers are going to get shipwrecked?
Don't have
my man.
No, don't.
No, that was good.
My most impressive win from the weekend is going to be the Cowboys against the Patriots.
Man,
38-3.
That defense was legit, too.
I mean, I understand the Patriots are no good. That's the most lopsided loss, actually, in Bill Belichick's career. He's never lost by that wide of a margin. So I'm going with the Cowboys. They are a legitimate threat in the NFC this year. We've been talking about that all year long. I still believe they will screw it up in the playoffs because Mike McCarthy is their head coach.
Yep.
But hot damn, that was an impressive win yesterday for them. Most disappointing. That's what I'm saying. Most disappointing performance of the week, Alex.
Oh, God, there were a lot of them. Is it bad that if I say the Chiefs was the most disappointing performance of the week?
They go out there and score 17 in the first quarter and then are able to muster up 6 the rest of the game. Get the hell out of here.
I mean, that was bad. The Bears were disappointing, which, frankly, nobody expected to see that look good. But, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes just disappeared from being one of the best quarterbacks in the game for like 2 quarters in that game last night.
Working on that floater.
Yeah.
It was like him
Focusing
and
on
Zach Wilson
T-Swift.
traded bodies at the end of the first quarter. Zach Wilson was, I tweeted this out and Chiefs fans were mad at me. Zach Wilson was balling yesterday, dude. He looked awesome. He was making throws where it was like, hey, man, I know people want to get mad about the Chiefs defense. There's no defense for a perfect throw, and Wilson's rifling these things in there.
God, that drive, what was it, at the end of the first half or the start of the second half? 3 back shoulder throws.
It was amazing.
Whoa!
My most disappointing performance is the Bengals.
I was going to say
they're
Bengals,
broken.
too.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be okay by November. My concern is I don't know that they're going to get back on track quick enough. Like, they go to Arizona this weekend. Guys, Arizona can beat them. 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said this, but Arizona is a really well-coached football team. They do not really hurt themselves, and they've got a defense that's fine. They're not good. They could easily go into the break 1-5. And if you're 1-5 going into your bye week, you're done. You're not going to be able to make the playoffs coming out of that. So, especially when your post-bye week game is at San Francisco. So I think the Bengals might be broken.
Somebody did tag me on Twitter last night after the Ravens did their performance, so I have to give them credit. That was a very impressive game by them, specifically Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. So I got to give them credit.
The Ravens are good.
Yeah. That was a good game for them.
I don't think the Ravens are great, but the Ravens are good.
I still would have them below Miami, Kansas City, and Buffalo. Those would be the 3 teams that I have them below. But they proved to me that they can at least compete because that offense did not look that way all the way up until last night.
They're a second-tier contender in the AFC right now. And there's a bunch of teams that I could throw into that category, but they're probably at the top of that list.
Yep.
T-Bone, did you have...
I was with you. I was with the Bengals.
Okay.
They're broken. I'm not sure they turned it around. Now, I think you're probably right. Maybe they do, but it's just a little bit too late. They may sneak into the playoffs, but I think they're one and done. They're not a good football team, and I don't know exactly what's gone wrong with them. I can't just say, this is all because Burrow missed training camp. Like, I would think some of the stuff...
I think he's hurt right now.
That I agree with. But also, too, like the missing training camp thing, I would think that we would start to see signs of, even if he's hurt, signs of things starting to look better. And in fact, they took that 1 step forward last week. They took like 3 steps back this week, getting throttled by the Tennessee Titans.
All right, next thing. Best individual performance that you saw over the week. And I'll go ahead and get us started here. Christian McCaffrey has a case for MVP this season with the way that he's playing so far. He has been a man possessed. So far on this season, he has 80 carries for 450 yards and 6 touchdowns. He is on pace this season to finish with 600 receiving yards and 2,000 rushing yards. That has to be one of the best seasons if he continues at this pace, which would be an astronomical rate. If he continues, that would be one of the best seasons we've ever seen by a running back, and he should be in the conversation for MVP. And I say that as somebody that obviously is not all in on the running back value train. But what Christian McCaffrey is doing, he's different. And their trade to bring him into San Francisco, into that offense, is looking better and better by the day. Running backs in general, not super valuable. Christian McCaffrey, he is the one exception to that rule. Christian McCaffrey, what he did yesterday against the Cardinals was incredible.
Mine was Josh Allen. And I mean, I know there's a lot of
Give that man his roses. He played his ass off
There's a lot of pessimism for him, but I mean, look, the dude only had 4 incomplete passes. He threw for over 300 yards, and he and Stephon Diggs were just on another level. They completed 3 touchdowns. He had 4 of them in that game on top of his rushing ability. I mean, Josh Allen might be one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks in terms of not knowing what you're going to get week to week, but when he's on, he legit is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the game. So I got to give him his roses like you mentioned, BK.
Yeah, he was really good. He's only thrown the 1 interception since that loss to the Jets. So it just was a reminder.
Yeah.
You don't turn the ball over, Josh. We got a chance to win with you. C.J. Stroud, he looks really good. He's thrown for 300 yards in 2 of his 4 games this season. And I thought going into that game against Pittsburgh, I wasn't 100% sure that he was going to have a good game because I thought that Pittsburgh defense may put a lot of pressure on him. He's got a lot of pressure in his face, and he's still playing well. I've been really impressed with C.J. Stroud early on here.
Anthony Richardson both look awesome.
Richardson
you could not be more excited if you're a Texans or a Colts fan and more disappointed if you're a Panthers fan.
Richardson looked bad in the first half, too, against the Rams. Like, he couldn't make completions. Now, some of it was his receivers dropping passes. But then the second half just opened up, and Richardson felt like it was the bleep this moment, I'm going to take it myself.
Yesterday was more of what I expected from Richardson this year, where the good is, holy, did you see that throw that he made across the middle?
Yeah.
Where it was just a rifle, like 25 yards down the field. There's like 5 quarterbacks in the league that make that throw that he made yesterday. And then his ability to just win as a runner. So that was more of what I anticipated. He finished with a below 50% completion rate in that game. That's kind of what I thought we would see, is like a bunch of big and a bunch of bust. But the guy that's been the most consistent thus far is C.J. Stroud. You're right, T-Bone. He's been awesome. So that is a really good one as well. One other one that I would throw in here, given the injury, I know he didn't go up against a great defense, but Justin Herbert played really well yesterday. And his ability to find a way to win that game in the end, credit to the Chargers, credit to Justin Herbert. Yeah.
What
do you have,
5 or
6 sacks in that game?
Guy found the fountain of youth all of a sudden. Boy, did they need it because Staley tried to screw things up again.
Justin Herbert won that game despite his coach again. Brandon Staley, if ever there was a coach that should be fired in a winning effort, it's him. That guy's got to go, man. Get him out of there.
I've been chanting for that since last year.
It's embarrassing. All right, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, we'll talk to Katie Wu. Coming up next, though, we'll get to questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Many of you sending in questions about City SC. We'll get to some of those coming up next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. We'll get to questions and answers right now. Katie Wu coming up here in less than 5 minutes. Alex, how would you compare the season that we're witnessing right now from St. Louis City SC to the success that we saw from the Golden Knights and the Kraken in the NHL?
They're more successful than the Kraken, in my eyes. The first season of Seattle was underwhelming, probably for a lot of people, mostly because of what Vegas did, and everybody just assumed that's what expansion teams were in this era. It's hard for me to combat with what Vegas did just because Vegas was, I mean, these were fourth-line guys on other teams in the NHL that turned into 30, 40. I mean, William Karlsson at most had 5 goals in his NHL season and scored 50 the first year with Vegas. So that to me was very impressive. Now, what City's doing right now is just as impressive. But to take over what Vegas accomplished, I think you have to do what Vegas did in terms of make it the distance in the postseason.
I agree.
That's what I was going to say, too. I think if you're going to – I think they're better than Seattle. I think you're right there because Seattle missed the playoffs their first year. I think if you're going to get to that Vegas kind of ilk in this conversation of expansion teams, you've got to essentially get to the championship game. You've got to get there and be playing for it because that's what Vegas did. And Vegas did it with – kind of fourth liners. I would say City's kind of got some of those guys that were kind of cast aside. Like Berkey was cast aside by his German club, and City SC did their due diligence, swooped in and grabbed him. Same with Klaus. So I think they did their job in terms of doing that. Now it's just a matter of can you take this home field advantage you've got throughout the playoffs now and get to the championship.
We're full agree there, and it's really going to come down to what happens in the postseason. But if we're talking about regular season success, they're the most successful MLS expansion team ever. And they have a chance, based on their health and the fact that they're playing about as well as they have in the last few months, to be able to go far in this year's MLS playoff run. From the 314, guys, how impressed are you with what Dennis Gates is doing on the recruiting trail for Missouri? It looks like they still have the #1 recruiting class in the country, and they added another big man over the weekend. Alex, did you see this?
I did.
Another 7-footer getting added to the mix. Trent Burns out of Houston, Texas, 7'2", 220 pounds.
DG's just going tree trunks right now under his basket. He's like, screw this. Let's see if somebody goes inside on us.
The additions in this year's recruiting class, which is indeed ranked #1 in the entire country. 7'2", 6'10", 6'7", 6'5", 6'5". It's a lot of size, a lot of length that they did not have in previous iterations.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but Brad Underwood and the Fighting Illini, they're not ranked in the top 5 recruiting classes, correct?
Yeah, let me see where they're at.
So much talent on our roster right now, we don't have to worry about this.
You're right. Talent in terms of internal argument. Let's go with that talent. Are you still scrolling?
I'm going back.
Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling.
They're actually 16th right now.
Must not have been a good year recruiting-wise.
No, that's actually pretty good.
2 commits.
2 commits and they're 16?
It's early in the process. That's what's so amazing is Missouri's getting all these guys to jump on board so early. Dennis Gates is the best coach that Missouri's had since at least Mike Anderson, and he might have to go back further than that. That's what we're witnessing right now. I'm willing to say that just 1 year in.
I'll say
it's also not a high bar.
I'll say it's the best ever.
Wow.
Best coach that Mizzou's ever had?
Yeah, I don't have much beyond Frank Haith, so.
No, Norm Stewart is pretty good, so we'll wait to get there, but.
Tell me if Norm got all these top recruits.
He did, but that was a long time ago before the Rivals rankings.
I wasn't a three-point line back then.
I wasn't alive then, too, so.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of in or out. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. But coming up next, Katie Wu was out at the Cardinals weekend palooza for Adam Wainwright. We'll ask her about what her big takeaway was from Waino's send-off, and Ollie Marmol had some interesting comments yesterday. We want to get Katie's perspective on that next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It was a good weekend at Busch Stadium for Adam Wainwright's send-off, and we go out to the 101 ESPN hotline right now to be joined by Katie Woo, the Cardinals insider for The Athletic, to discuss some of that and Ollie Marmol's comments from yesterday, which certainly made some news as well. Katie, we appreciate the time, as we have all season long, you joining us every single Monday coming off of a Cardinals weekend. How you doing today? Are you resting and recovering after what was a very long Cardinal season?
You guys, we did it. It is October 2nd. We made it through. I'm sure I'll have more thoughts on the season once I decompress and maybe recover from the trauma. But no, all jokes aside, it's always such an eye-opening experience to do your dream job every day. And I know this season was not what anyone of us expected, but still something to learn from and plenty to carry over into the offseason.
Katie, it's funny that you think the offseason is going to give you time to recover from the trauma. The trauma is just starting right now because every day is going to be, why aren't you holding the Cardinals accountable, Katie? Why aren't they making moves?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I very much think that this is going to be a very busy offseason for the Cardinals, so much so that I am going to soak up every second of the postseason, because I do believe that when the postseason is over and we transition to the GM meetings in the second week of November, the Cardinals front office will have hit the ground running. Now, I do understand the warranted skepticism from the fans. What has the front office done to earn any of this fan base's trust over the last year? Not much. So I get people might be rolling their eyes saying, you know, they haven't really spent, they haven't made any amazing trades really over the last 2 years. They haven't really altered the franchise. Why should we be expecting anything different? I hear you. That's valid. My counter argument is look at the standings, look at the record, and look at the overall product on the field. That was an embarrassment to this front office and this organization as a whole. And I genuinely do believe Ollie Marmol's comments when he says the organization is committed to never letting that happen again.
So over the weekend, the big news, and we'll get to some of the offseason outlook here in just a moment, Katie. I definitely want to get to that with you. But the big news, the big story was Adam Wainwright, the send-off that he had out at Busch Stadium. You had the concert on Saturday night. You had the at-bat on Friday, and then again yesterday on Sunday. You had Yachty and Albert out there. You had all of the big stars coming out. What was your biggest takeaway from the weekend of the Cardinals celebrating Adam Wainwright, Katie?
You know, I loved what the Cardinals did for Adam Wainwright. It reminded me of everything this organization does well. I think the Cardinals are right up there with the Yankees and the Giants in terms of really honoring their franchise greats, and Adam certainly deserved it. This weekend was, I think, what fans needed to not end the year on the most sour note imaginable. I think regardless of the season, we were all able to reflect on 18 magnificent years with Adam Wainwright. And that ceremony they did on Sunday was spectacular. They nailed it. Keeping Yadier Molina a secret was, I think, the good, feel-good moment that we all needed. And to see Adam's reaction when Albert and Yachty came out of the dugout, I mean, he immediately burst into tears and put his head in his hands. He was so overcome with emotion. We should be celebrating Adam Wainwright. He's deserved it. He's a franchise icon. He's a leader in the sport and in the community. He's done so much for the city. I have zero issue with what the Cardinals did to celebrate a totally deserving man. That's all that the Cardinals should be celebrating this season, though. I will remember this year for so many things, completely deserving celebration for Adam. Done so well, well-deserved. And I think it reminded us of what Cardinals baseball should be and what it definitely wasn't this year.
I asked this question about a month ago, Katie, knowing that, of course, this might be the end or is the end of Adam Wainwright, unsure if we were going to see him in a game after that 200th win. Does next season, does that give the Cardinals team an opportunity to take on a different identity now that all of these guys that have been a part of World Series championships, Yachty, Pujols, Waino, now that they're all gone from this roster?
Yeah, this is a different era. It's a brand new era of Cardinals baseball because you had Adam Wainwright as kind of the last man standing of the 2000s era. And with him retiring, it's the young core. I mean, obviously you have the Goldschmidts and the Arenados and the Contrerases, but the players that the Cardinals are relying on are Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman. Like, this is a new era of Cardinals baseball. And I think that's why the Cardinals, you know, besides their truly awful season, feel a need to get this right because they're trying to reestablish themselves as a legitimate postseason team, not just a 90-win, hope you sneak in. That philosophy eventually does not pay off, as they found out this year. But I certainly think it's a brand new era of baseball. And when you look at this roster, I thought Jeff Jones had a really good point. Not a single guy on this roster, as the Cardinals stand right now, has won an NLCS. The most they've won is an NLDS. So this is a roster that has to establish a winning culture because as a group, they don't have it.
Katie Wu is our guest here on 101 ESPN. You can read her great work over at The Athletic. And if you do, you can check out her piece with comments yesterday from Ollie Marmol, where he did, I think, make some news a little bit, some headway, whatever you want to call it, when he said, quote, "I want a clubhouse full of guys that has one thing on their minds, and it's not themselves. It's winning championships. So you can start out by weeding those out," end quote. Katie, that is an inflammatory quote, to say the least. And then it sounds like you didn't really follow up with specifics on who that would be. I don't blame him. I certainly wouldn't want to name names publicly either. What did you make of that, Katie?
Well, it was one of those quotes that you do like a double blink just to make sure you heard it right. And look, Ollie Marmol, I think for all the gripes that fans may have with him over the year, I thought he was as accountable as possible in these quotes. And that quote in particular was especially telling because the Cardinals really are looking towards next season. Right now, at this moment, they are meeting with their entire baseball analytics department, the whole coaching staff in the front office, and doing a player-by-player review by performance. And I thought that quote was pretty telling because all year long, I've walked in that clubhouse every day, and I would have reported it if it was different. But I did feel a sense of unity in the clubhouse. The majority of the guys there wanted to be there, believed in each other in the group, believed in the coaching staff. And you could see that with Ollie being brought back, that the players still had trust in their manager and their coaching staff. But I think being available and wanting to play each day is a huge trait if you're trying to build a winning clubhouse. Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, up until Nolan's back, literally could not put on any more strain. Same with Goldschmidt. Played every single day in a lost season that they could. They told Ollie in September, hey, we want to play every day this month, even though we are playing for really nothing. There are a bunch of guys that are like that. Brendan Donovan played with practically one arm for, 3 weeks.
And was one of the best hitters in baseball while doing so.
He seriously was so good. It's incredible. Nolan Gorman fought through a ton of injuries. And Wilson Contreras, he practically had to drag out of a game. I mean, this dude got smacked in the head with a bat and was still like, I'm good. So I'm not sure if you can say that about a couple of players on this team. And I think that it's more or less the Cardinals are trying to find availability. It's a key trait. They want players that are going to play every single day and are committed to winning a championship. I'm not saying that guys in that clubhouse don't want to win a championship. Obviously they do. But I think the Cardinals are looking for more unity, more dependability, and guys that are willing to show up and play every single day.
Katie, obviously, I'm not going to ask you to name names, but in terms of position, if this is the route that they're going, they're going to
opens up an outfielder.
No, okay, well, that one wasn't obvious. Come on, man, that's just easy top off there. But would you say that there's going to be more changes for the position players or the pitching side in that sense?
That's a good question. I feel like it's a little unfair to evaluate the bullpen, especially in the second half, because they were just piecing that together. They traded away a lot of key players. Maybe position-wise, but I also think that this roster is so unclear next year because you don't know who you may or may not trade, who may or may not become available, and certainly the guys that ended the season, a good majority of them won't be on the active roster come opening day. So that's a little tough to answer. But I do think you can go ahead and check off the guys that do fit those boxes. I think this club is so high on Brendan Donovan. Jordan Walker finishing the year, I mean, he led the team in batting average. Mason Wynn, I know his average was low, but that shortstop that he played, I mean, that really impressed some guys there. And Lars Nootbaar, I mean, he went out and said his season was underwhelming, and yet he still led the team in WAR. So that kind of core, along with the cornerstones, of course, is who the Cardinals are relying on, and that core is so pivotal to their positions. I can't really see that changing.
Katie, what's the future hold for Wilson Contreras with this team, position-wise?
I think he was signed to be a catcher, and he will continue to catch as long as he can make the defensive changes that the Cardinals need him to make. Now, you can look at where he stands, and obviously throughout his career, he's been an offensive-first catcher. And if the Cardinals were so worried about having good defense behind the plate, maybe they should have signed a defensive-first catcher. You knew what you were getting in Wilson Contreras. And to Wilson's credit, he put up nearly exactly the type of numbers he has throughout his career. The Cardinals essentially got what they paid for. You cannot go out there and then find a guy who has a proven track record offensively and a shaky track record defensively and expect him to be an all-star defender, right? I don't think that's fair to anyone involved. Now, there are transitions Wilson needs to make. I caught up with him before the end of the season. I'll have a story out with him soon. And he knows. He says, I want to be a total catcher. I want to improve my framing. I want to improve my blocking. He does feel like his relationship with the pitchers has improved. That's just about building trust. That takes time. That's not an indictment on either side, of course. But we all knew when the Cardinals signed Contreras that he was a bat-first catcher. And the defense does need to be better. He'll be the first to say that. He'll be the first to say he wants to improve. But I do think the Cardinals, if they are questioning a change, and it doesn't sound like they are at this point, you'd have to wonder why they are questioning a change for a problem that they should have saw coming.
Amen. Amen to that. You're preaching out there, Katie. Last question for you, and we'll get you out of here on this one. There will certainly be plenty of time to talk big picture overview with the offseason as we continue along. But as we sit here today, Katie, your conversations around the ballpark, whether it's just with other writers, other radio people, people around the team, people in the clubhouse, whatever, who do you think are the most likely targets for the Cardinals pitching-wise this offseason?
I'll go with Aaronola, but that's the same for, 29 other teams.
Oh, good.
I do think, right. I mean, let's be honest. Aaronola is going to be so highly coveted for obvious reasons. So it's easy to say, why can't the Cardinals just go get Aaronola? Well, they have to outbid 29 other teams, essentially. I can see them in the mix for Sonny Gray. I think Sonny Gray is a good Cardinal. I can see them being very active in the Korean League or the Japanese leagues. They've done a really good job at establishing pitchers from the Asian leagues and bringing them to the ballpark or to Busch Stadium and finding success there. And I think that, you also have to look at trades because there's just simply no way the Cardinals can go spend – well, there is. They could just do it, but they won't. They won't spend an unprecedented amount of money to go find 3 front-end free agent starting pitchers. That's a near impossible ask. You've got to start looking at teams like the Giants, the Mariners, teams with young, promising pitching talent, and see what you could trade from there. But the only thing, guys, is if you make a trade for that kind of uncontrollable pitching, it's going to hurt. There's no way the Cardinals pull off a trade and don't trade away someone pivotal, someone who's going to go out and have an incredible career, that we're not looking back 5 years later saying, oh, why did they trade him? Well, they had to. That's kind of the hole that they dug. So to quote John Mozeliak, it's going to be pitching, both starting and relief as their number one priority. And I think they'll be across all boards, free agents, trades, and international.
Interesting. Katie, we appreciate the time as always. Like I said, thank you so much for hopping on with us throughout this baseball season. It certainly hasn't always been the most enjoyable of conversations on Mondays as you give us our therapy session on the Cardinals, but we sincerely appreciate it. We look forward to talking with you again soon.
You guys are the best. Thanks as always, and I'm sure it won't be long before we're chatting again.
Yeah, sounds good. I think next week is the exit interview, so I would imagine there will probably be a thing or two coming out of that.
Just hold them accountable, Katie.
Keep going.
Got it, guys.
It's Katie Wu joining us as she does each and every Monday throughout the baseball season here on 101 ESPN. Let me just quick aside on Katie. When Katie first got the job at The Athletic, Alex, we had her on right away. And we immediately saw, hey, she's awesome on the air. She, first of all, outstanding with what she does for The Athletic, of course, but also has a great personality and is really fun to go back and forth with on the air. And so we wanted to get her on weekly. And so we decided to make that a partnership last year throughout the baseball season. And obviously that was a lot of fun because we were chronicling a great Cardinals season through. This year, it has been a horrendous Cardinal season in every possible way. So despite traveling and all of the stuff that she's had going on, she's always made time for us on Mondays, and we do really appreciate that from Katie this year with us. One thing that I did want to get to real quick. Katie mentioned a lot of players on who it definitely is not.
Yeah, process of elimination
being called out from Ollie Marmol when he says, I want a clubhouse full of guys that has one thing on their minds, and it's not themselves, it's winning championships. You start by weeding those out. Could we do the reckless speculation for a moment?
Oh, my God. Hit the purge sounder.
Can I?
It's Tyler O'Neill. Yeah, we can.
That's one. He doesn't say this if it's just one, though, right?
Yeah, you don't. Because if it's just one, you probably don't even need to say it because it's already known.
I'll do one devil's advocate. You say it if you think the president of baseball operations might think about keeping him. And so you want to get this out there on the front end and say, like, hey, that guy can't be back. And so you make sure that everybody knows it where you stand on that specific player. And we all know who that is. It's 27. He's got to go.
His knees hurt.
Other than that,
turf.
Is there anybody that immediately came to mind for you?
I mean, I would be surprised with this, but she didn't mention Nolan Gorman.
She did. She said
she mentioned Nolan Gorman? Oh, okay. Yep. That was the one I missed.
They love Nolan Gorman. They love Brendan Donovan. They love Newt. They love Contreras. They love Wind. They love
So we've
Walker.
got all the position players minus Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson was the only name.
Carlson, too, because he's been fighting through these injuries.
So it's on the pitching side. And, I mean, go through the rotation.
And we know they love Burleson. Ollie can't stop.
And we know they love we know they love Taylor Motter, so he'll be there. Richie Palacios, he'll be there. James Nail continues to find his way back to this team.
Did he finish the year on the
Yeah, he did. And then he'll get DFA'd on his birthday again.
We're down watching the concert on Saturday night.
Son of a nutcracker. But
good for him, man.
You got to go to the pitching side. And look, the starting pitching-wise, Miles Michaelis, they love. Steven Matz, I think they like. I mean, the guy pitches well, and he's always available to them.
When he's healthy.
When he's healthy. But, I mean, again, if we're going to go that down, then Dylan Carlson's in that spot. But is it Ryan Helsley? Is it?
That's the one that came to mind for me. And I don't know if it's fair or not. Because what he did at the end of the season, I think, earned him some benefit of the doubt. Him coming back was meaningful for him to be able to get out there. And he went back-to-backs. He ended up going multiple innings with that Waino 200th win. He did stuff that I really questioned if he would as he came back from the injured list. So I think it's possible that's who he's talking about. But I also know they've talked up, about how important he is for the back end of the bullpen. And if he's not here next year, I don't think they're going to go out and spend a bunch of money on a closer. I don't really know how you fill that role without going out and spending money or making a big-time trade for a closer, which feels like a weird use of resources when you have so many other needs pitching-wise. It's possible, Alex. I'm not telling you you're wrong, but that would feel kind of strange if it was him. But if it's not, I don't know who the other player is.
There's nobody else. I mean, there's nobody in the rotation. You've got these young guys. I mean, if you want to say Dakota Hudson, fine. But I don't know how you'd throw him into this conversation. And bullpen-wise, JoJo Romero was always available. Yep. Maybe Giovanni Gallegos, but seems like he's pretty available to them.
And I think this could be one of those, too, where it was referring to what they had in the past as well. Could they have been mentioning a Jack Flaherty in the process of weeding out those guys? Was finishing weeding them out may have been what he may have been referring to, too.
Can I give you one more?
Who's the other one you're thinking of?
Maybe, I don't know, Liberator?
That's who I was just about to say this, too, because
there were a lot of comments that were strange this year about how he, not listening to what the coaches are telling.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. This is all speculation. I want to say I'm definitely not reporting. I'm trying to understand this quote, and when they don't explain it a little further, it leaves a lot to interpretation.
I was going to bring him up too because he
philosophical differences.
When you read off that quote, it does feel like it is. I want guys that want to win a championship. It's not just about me. It did make me kind of wonder about the guys that we've heard the quotes of. Hey, he's kind of stubborn would be the word I would use. Where it is, my way has always worked. Well, it's not working. And to your point on Liberatore, he's the guy that does kind of fit into this. Burleson kind of fit into this too, but Burleson, as you heard, when he got injured and injured that thumb, said, hey, I finally let Turner Ward in. Yep. So it's not him. And Ollie and the coaching staff have been glowing about him. But Liberatore was a name that did kind of pop into my mind of he's kind of stubborn. At least the quotes have made it sound that way. Is he one of those guys that they're talking about as well?
We have a couple others, people that have been asking about Nolan Arenado. That I can assure you it is not Nolan Arenado. You will not find anybody that loves Nolan Arenado more than Ollie Marmol and this coaching staff. They absolutely adore the guy. And the quote that I always refer back to from last year at the All-Star break when it was announced that Nolan was going to be an All-Star, and I asked Ollie, hey, what does it mean for him? He's done a lot of these, what makes him an all-star perennially? And he said it's because he's fighting through anything, no matter what. You guys don't even know about it, and he's battling through a back issue. That happened again this year. So, it's definitely not something about Nolan. I'm going to ask it. I know today is a day of celebration for him, but it's, I think, an interesting question. Could it have been about Waino?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, it's not like he was adamantly going out there for himself. I understand he came back for himself for 200 wins, but that can't be the only argument inside you take of it, because he did come back for how he pitched last season, and he performed well. Like
Waino?
All the way up until those final 2 months of the season, he performed well for the team.
Last year.
Last year, not this year.
I thought you were talking about this year. I was like,
so when he came back this season, minus that final month, we all thought Waino was going to perform at least like a 4 or 5.
I had serious concerns about Waino coming back this year.
Okay, a majority of people, minus BK with his deep analytical dive.
No, I think he was
totally
right when he
fair.
said it. Yeah,
but it's not like he was coming
of the
back.
season. He was terrible, and we said going into the postseason, hey, this guy cannot be a part of your playoff rotation. Like that is, I didn't even think he could be a part of their playoff roster last year. And then they decided to make him. I think he was going to start Game 3 for them if they ended up getting there, but neither here nor there. There were serious, legitimate questions about him coming into the season. Now, you said that I cut you off early. That's on me. You said as a 4 or 5. I thought it was reasonable to ask him to be a 5 coming into this season, and nothing more than that. But, I mean, he pitched poorly for the entirety of this season, and it did become about Waino in the second half of the season. Now, there's also the secondary piece to this of the Cardinals also stunk at that point in time, and everybody knew they were done. So I don't think he's talking about Waino, but as we try to search for who the other players or player could be that he's referencing here, I don't know. Also, he doesn't have to weed those guys out if he's talking about Waino because Waino's already gone. Right. So yeah. I think they really genuinely loved Waino, and I think they're sad that he's going to be gone. But that was one other question. Somebody on the text line brought it up. It's something that came to mind for me as well. I don't know. I don't know who it is that they're trying to talk about there. All right, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for In or Out here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and I've got some exciting news for all the men out there. Victory Men's Health has launched a new telehealth site. It's called VictoryRx.com. Write this down somewhere, men. VictoryRx.com. You can go there to get prescribed that ED medication that you've been looking for. Maybe you've tried a bunch of different other places. The process can be difficult. It can be clunky. Go to the site, go to 17 different portals, put in the same information a bunch of different ways. Well, not with VictoryRx.com. You're doing your entire consults all via text. This is a trusted brand, too. They've treated thousands of men in their standalone locations, and now wherever you're listening from right now, you can get easy access to that #1 selling ED medication. This is going to come in a chewable tablet. It's got active ingredients with both Viagra and Cialis, and that chewable tablet's going to be important. It's not going to be affected by the food or the drink that you had earlier in the day. If you have the pill, it actually can be affected by those things. Maybe you didn't know that prior to. The chewable tablet with VictoryRx.com, that is the way that you want to do it. It's going to be the right dosage for you. It's going to work the first time around. VictoryRx.com. Play hard.
Tanner Hendricks, New Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals win their regular season finale yesterday against the Reds 4-3 as they finish the 2023 season 71-91, and the MLB playoffs start tomorrow. And you can hear Game 1 between the Phillies and Marlins here on 101 ESPN tomorrow night. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30, and tonight here on 101 ESPN, Blues back in action as they take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Alex Ferrario, Joey Vitale will have your pregame coverage starting at 5, and then Joey will join Chris Garber for puck drop at 6. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffauto.com. Are you kidding me?
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys want to get involved in the show, you can also watch us on YouTube. We're always available over there, Alex. 101 ESPN STL, that's where you go to find it. Or if you just honestly go to YouTube and search in 101 ESPN, you can find us that way.
Yeah, it's easy.
Our cameras are presented by the Air Alliance team. That's the studio cams available for you each and every day right here on 101 ESPN.
They're a great team, and BK and Ferrario are a great team. We go together like butter and sour cream. We don't make a baked potato without butter and sour cream, right? You guys aren't that psycho.
I'm
not a big sour cream guy.
White gelatinous. That makes sense. Hey,
not a big
sense.
sour cream guy.
I'm with on that.
Frankly, I don't do mayonnaise anymore.
Well,
I convinced you on that one, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that and
well,
putting it in
you
coffee
and
kinda ruined
Dan
it.
Campbell, or not Dan Campbell, who was the psycho? Oh, Will Levis.
Yeah.
How's he doing in the NFL right now?
He'll have a job soon because Tannehill's going to lose it.
Suddenly, it makes sense as to why he went as late as he did in
all the GMs
draft.
are like, I'm not drafting this psychopath.
All right, let's play a game of in or out. You give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out here on 101 ESPN. Guys, in or out, the best bet to win the World Series because of their value is the Toronto Blue Jays at 20-1.
I would say yeah.
You guys want the value? Or you want
if you got them.
The Braves are the favorite right now to win the World Series.
The best bet
plus
right
250. The Dodgers are second at 4-1. Who is betting the Dodgers at 4-1? You must be stopped. We must stop these people.
Seems like a BK bet.
The Houston Astros at 5-1. The Orioles at 7-1. The Rays are 12-1, along with the Phillies. I kind of like that bet
How
too.
the hell are the Rays? They don't have pitching.
They've got a good offense.
But they don't have pitching.
I know. People remember that they have had success in the postseason. I'm guessing it's just I think that's the same reason why the Dodgers are up that high.
Yeah. But at least they can argue having like two legit MVP candidates.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Twins are 17-1 along with the Brewers, and then it is the Rangers and Blue Jays at 20-1.
It's wild to me that all of those teams are higher up than the Blue Jays. So yeah, I would say that's absolutely correct. The Blue Jays have a good team, and they've got an even better pitching staff than a majority of those teams you just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm in on this because they're one of those teams that just I could never figure out this season to where they kind of disappointed, but you look at their roster and you go, they feel really good. And they kind of feel like the Phillies of last year, where they've got a decent pitching staff, they've got a pretty good lineup, and if they all get hot at the same time going into this playoffs series, then they could be a team that could go on a run potentially. So I'm in on that. I think they are the best value bet.
Also got some guys that were just like disappointing bats relative to expectations this year. Vlad Guerrero Jr. had, by his standards, a down season. Finished with a 785 OPS this year. Same is true for George Springer. Like, these guys are proven players that have shown you the back of their baseball cards pretty damn impressive. And when you go into a playoff series against the Blue Jays, you're going to be terrified every time that you have to face them when they're coming up to bat. So I think they're, in my opinion, the best bet. If you didn't want to go with them, the Rangers at 20-1 also is an interesting one. And then I really like pitching. The Phillies at 12-1.
Yeah. It sucks for the Blue Jays that they don't have Alek Manoah. Like, having Manoah like he was last year would significantly change their outlook, and obviously they're still searching.
Got some good pitchers, man.
Yeah.
Their pitching staff is really good going into this postseason.
Well, everybody loves Kikuchi, man.
Alex, go ahead.
In or out, fellas, the Blue...
Not responding to that.
What, you don't like Kikuchi?
Go.
Big fan of Kikuchi. T-Bone? In or out, the Blues and Predators swap spots in terms of point value from last season this season.
So what you thought he was going to say, is it?
No, I wasn't quite sure where he was going.
What does that mean? Oh, you back to the Kikuchi?
Yeah.
I do love me some Kikuchi.
The Blues and who?
Predators. So Predators had 92 points last season, and the Blues had 81 points. And I bring this up because last week we didn't get to it. It was the Athletic piece, ESPN was discussing how they believe the Predators are going to take a significant step forward this upcoming season. Guys, I am so far in on this. How the bleep do people think the Predators are taking a massive step forward? Like, their general manager stated at the draft, hey, we're about to go into a rebuild.
Art said it's retool, and you're saying we're
I'd rather have the retool and then a rebuild.
They haven't won a game in the preseason. I think it's over for the Nashville Predators.
Wow, the Blues lost 2 in overtime. I'd say it's over for them, too.
The Blues are tied for first in the Central Division in this year's preseason.
But
6 points so far.
Seriously, though, so that the Nashville Predators scored 229 goals last season, and they allowed 238.
Yeah, they're the inverse of the Blues. The Blues are defensively what the Predators are offensively. They both have a serious liability, and it just comes down to what do you think's more likely to sustain? The Blues' goal-scoring ability or the Predators' goal suppression? And I think it's easier to sustain that goal suppression, honestly, than it is what the Blues are trying to do with goal scoring. It's harder to do that on a consistent basis, and injuries can really tamp that down quickly. So I'm going to say out because of that, but I'm totally with you in the idea that like the team that is most likely to take a significant step back this year in the division is the Nashville Predators. I do agree.
They scored 229 goals as a team last year, guys. They lost 34 of those goals in the offseason and didn't add anything other than Ryan O'Reilly, who scored, 16? I mean, I don't understand how this is possible, and I do think the Blues flip spots with them.
I'm out.
Of course you are. I don't even know why I bring you in on this.
I mean, I see the same issues with the Blues team that I saw last year. Don't shoot enough. Don't hit the net when they do shoot.
It's preseason.
And defensively, they're going to be bad again.
You know how you always temper expectations in training camp at spring training?
No, I'm supposed to be leaving training camp going, my goodness, this guy or this is going to happen. Remember me in spring training with the Cardinals? Man, we were a 100-win team. I'm about to leave the Blues preseason going, yeah, they look the same.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe.
Because clearly
the Predators aren't saying
Cardinals.
it. Maybe.
Well, the Predators aren't saying it either.
Well, no, I don't think either team's going to be necessarily that good. I think they're all about where the Blues were last year, right around that like 500 point percentage mark.
Somebody's got to make the damn postseason in the Central.
The Central Division in the NHL is the NL Central in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
There's
and
just a bunch of
Milwaukee
average
Brewers.
teams. That's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
In or out, the Missouri Tigers will finish second in the SEC East.
Did you watch Kentucky this weekend?
They were really good.
Kentucky looks really good. It was a weird start to the year for them. It, by the way, was just announced that game is going to be a night game for Mizzou versus Kentucky.
Are you excited?
In Kentucky. So, no, that sucks. That is worst case scenario.
LSU and Mizzou's 11 a.m. kickoff, man.
Great. Awesome. Can't wait for it. I'm going to say in because I'm going to play the homer role. I think they can win the division, but it's going to be tough, man. Kentucky's really good. And having that game on the road, a place where Missouri has really struggled since joining the SEC, Kentucky should be the favorite right now to finish second in the East. But I'll say Missouri because I'm a homer.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say Missouri too because I'm right there with you. I think they'll beat LSU. I've said this before. Kentucky gets a little more difficult. I thought they could beat Kentucky prior, but that last game was very impressive. South Carolina, I thought that first loss was going to come against Georgia, but I still would view this team as a 1, maybe 2-loss team. So, yeah, I'll say I'm in on this.
I'd say I'm in too, but it is a toss-up between them and Kentucky. I think they're clearly tied for second with the best team in the East because everybody else, Florida, we've said this all year, they're not good. Tennessee, quarterback can't hit a barn. Yep. South Carolina stinks and Vandy stinks. And in Georgia, like, I laugh at you saying they could potentially win the division because I still think Georgia's defense is loaded.
Fair.
But they don't look...
No, that offense...
They continue to sleepwalk through this season because they just offensively are not the same team that they were last year with Bennett. So I'd say I'm in because I think Missouri... I have faith that they could beat the Kentucky Wildcats on the road.
Remember last year how all season long I was saying, like, Alabama just doesn't look right. Like they don't look like the contender that they were in previous seasons. And then it was like, well, but they keep winning. So
like
I don't
Clemson
understand.
Last year, 2 years ago.
Eventually it bit them. Eventually they lost to Tennessee. And eventually they lost to LSU. Now, those were really good teams that they lost to. Full credit to those teams. They made it work. And Alabama ended up not even making it to the SEC championship as a result. I think that is very much in play this year for Georgia. Now, the question is there a 2022 Tennessee or LSU on Georgia's schedule this year? And that is very much up for debate. But Missouri could be one of those teams. I think you could see Kentucky being one of those teams, but that's where things get really interesting for me. All right, let's get to the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. Guys, in or out? T-Bone, we'll start with you here. City intentionally rested players during the Cup tournament, and what we're watching right now is it's paying off for them as they go down the stretch with fully rested players.
I'll say I'm in, but I don't think they're the only one that did this, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because those Cup games, Leagues Cup, U.S. Open Cup, you don't really play your starters till you get to about that championship, or really till you get to like the quarters or semis, because that's when prize money starts to become a thing. Otherwise, it's just a nuisance for you to just start playing your guys a lot. So I'd say I'm into this, and I think you'll see the same thing. They qualified for the CONCACAF Champions League. I think they'll do the same thing in that too. So I'm in. I think they rested a lot of those guys on purpose.
Yeah, I would say in too. I mean, it's all about the end game. And if you're an expansion team, the success is winning your conference and going for a deep playoff run. So all of the other things just doesn't matter as much in that first season.
Sweep it. We're all in agreement here. I think that's exactly what they did. And I think we're seeing it pay off. I do think like Klaus, Leuven, those guys are playing better right now in part because of the way that they treated them throughout the season, especially Klaus. Their return to play decisions with Klaus seem to be paying off in a big way. By the way, another piece of this is Jokine playing as well as he did while Klaus was out allowed them to be a little more judicious with the way that they got him back onto the field. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Last thing here, guys, in or out, DeWitt is as hungry to win as Waino suggested that he is yesterday.
I'm going to say out. Like if you're the DeWitts, yeah, you're hungry to win and you don't want to live another 91 lost season. But if you're also the DeWitts, you understand the plan that's been in place for the longest time that you're seeing success with, of all these young players that are turning into pros and having some success. And now you've got this big, juicy top 5 potential pick in the draft. And to be as hungry as Waino stated with the DeWitts, that means the wallet opens more than it ever has. And I don't buy that.
I do.
I do too. And it's why I'm in. I think you want, if not win, at least be more competitive than they were this year. Because Bowden said it when we had him on. This was embarrassing. This was an embarrassing product. If it weren't for Waino's celebration this weekend, there'd be nobody at those games.
Yep.
Hell, I'm not sure PK and Luka would have went, and Karen would have went to the game.
We would have gone just for Luka's first game, but it would have been us and our 5 closest friends.
You would have had a whole section to yourself. So
that's the way to go, actually.
Yeah, it's not
we
bad.
got there an hour and a half before the game yesterday, and there was 0 parking available. People were lined up
and
out
that
in the
wouldn't
street
happen without the
when the
window
gates
thing.
were open.
No.
100%, yeah.
So I'm in. I think he knows, and by being booed, told him all he needed to know. And I think he kind of knew this, and it was just a reaffirmation of that. I think he knows the appetite here is not what happened this year, and people will not show up if this team is bad. And that's where he makes his money, is people come to the gates. So I'm in. I think he still got it.
Questions about the TV side of things.
Yeah.
Like the Valley Sports Midwest stuff has not just gone away. Just because it all worked out this year doesn't mean that things are just going to be fine going into next season. We don't know what the future holds for Valley Sports and the Diamond Sports Properties or whatever it's called. So that's something that'll be on the back of their mind as well.
Don't quote me on this, but I think that baseball has in place for when that does fold, like it's going to, it seems, that baseball will only give back 80% of the money on that deal. So you lose 20% of whatever your contract was.
Yeah. It's not ideal. Coming up next, let's dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. So, Alex, yesterday I did my first half marathon since COVID took place, right?
Here we go. BK in his running.
We get it, man. You're in better shape than both
We
of
get
us.
it.
So this is
T-Bone
going to
and
go
I
the
go home
opposite
and do
direction of
nothing.
that. Let me first start out by saying around mile 9, the cramps were not fun. Not enjoyable to deal with whatsoever.
Did you get
Felt like my legs, I told my wife this yesterday. She freaks out about any of the health stuff that potentially goes on with me. I said, yeah, so about mile 9, from my knees down, it felt like my legs were about to shut down, like stop operating. They're like, hey, we're done. Cut it out. So the reason why that happened, Alex, I'm pretty sure.
Because you got the cramps minus the M?
No, didn't have that. I took
good.
the anti-diarrheals prior to.
You should drink more water, like me.
Yeah, good call. Should drink
more coffee and less water.
So I think what happened was at the beginning of the race, I was running next to this guy. Some beautiful brown hair, had a tattoo under his arm of a cross.
What's happening right now?
So,
Are you like looking for this guy?
You'll
Text line, help
understand here in a
BK
second.
out.
I didn't
was
get
like-
your name.
I did. Is that Joey Vitale? I couldn't tell for sure if it was or
Joey
not.
don't have a tat there.
Well, clearly. I couldn't tell if it was him or not, though. And I did the thing where I was like trying to impress, you know? Joey was running at like a 7:20 mile pace.
You picked up
If
the
this
pace.
was Joey.
Joey's got 5 kids at home. You think he's going out for a half a marathon on a Sunday?
I
to
mean,
get away
Joey
from
runs like,
5.
what, every Thursday morning?
He runs a half a marathon like Sunday through Sunday with his kids every morning.
Fair, first of all. Second of all, though, I thought this might have been Joey. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep up with the pro athlete for a little while here. Now, that's the worst thing you could possibly do.
This guy's like Mike McDaniels. It's like, who the bleep is this guy?
So I was running beside him for a long time. And I get to about mile marker number 4, and I'm like, oh boy, this pace is not going to work out very well for me. And get to about mile 5, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to have to start reeling it in a little bit. This guy's going to keep on running, and I did not do the thing where I like look over, because sometimes you look over, you're like, I know this guy. I'm going to like say hello, right?
Oh, no,
I
lean
decided
into it.
probably not the right way to go about it, because I couldn't tell for sure if it was Joey or not, because I was running behind him. I don't think it was Joey, first of all. And second of all,
told you it wasn't Joey.
get about halfway through the race and like, oh God, I'm paying like hell for what I just did trying to keep up with what I thought at the time was a former pro athlete.
Why wouldn't you just do the normal thing and yell Joey really loud and see if he turns around?
Or just do like a quick little sprint, catch up to him,
And
then
realize it.
look and see if it's him.
Listen, mistakes were made, all right?
This whole thought process of running behind this guy going, I think this is Joey, but I can't.
This thing could have been
tell.
fixed on the same pace of you going, Joey!
Not him.
Not him. All right.
It would have been funny if another Joey turned around.
But instead, BK's awkwardly stalking this guy in his run, just like pacing with this dude. He's probably like,
admiring
this guy?
his tattoo too, as he
Hey,
brought
man,
up here.
Did you look at him and wink? Be like, hey man, nice tattoo.
No, I didn't. I was behind him, so that didn't happen.
Look good on me.
No. But I felt like, you know, Joey, very faithful guy. I thought maybe he had a tattoo under his arm. Turns out probably not.
Fairly certain Joey doesn't have a tattoo.
Are you sure about that?
I'm
Have you seen
fairly
Joey shirtless?
No, I haven't seen Joey
See,
shirtless.
You can't confirm.
I haven't seen him shirtless, but I'm fairly certain he has mentioned multiple times, I do not have tattoos.
Somebody on the text line said, have you never met Joey? Well, yes. Again,
Clearly not.
And you know Joey. Joey's got that hockey player bod. He's got the big booty. He's got the big glutes he always talks about. That's where you know it's Joe. And I would imagine if you're checking out this dude's tats and his nice brown hair, you're probably checking out his rear end too.
Now that I'm hearing this out loud said back to me, sounds a little strange.
Someone texted and said, should Kara be worried?
Yeah, probably, because I almost died on the half marathon trail because of this.
Honey, I got a cramp at mile 4. But let me tell you, there was this guy. He had some beautiful brown hair. He had a tattoo on his rib cage that just looked so good. This is what happens when you humble brag about exercising.
This isn't even meant to be a humble brag. This is a shot against me. My dumb ass tried to keep up with a former pro athlete, and it resulted in me cramping 4 miles later.
Probably a pro athlete and runner.
You should be more like T-Bone. I've got a tentatively scheduled nap for 3:30 this
You should be more like Alex. When I get home, I tell my girls to just play while Daddy sits on the ground.
I am so sore today.
Hey, girls, go play with dolls. Daddy's just going to lay here and nap for 5 minutes.
Yeah, wake me up when you're ready to go upstairs.
I'm so sore today, and tomorrow I have to feel the pains of labor.
Oh, that's going to be so good.
Life is not good.
I'm so excited.
Coming up next.
I'm so excited.
Nick Ritchie was supposed to be the savior for the Blues. Now he's not going to be on the Blues. What happened? We'll talk about it next. Show 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. So we were all hoping, believing, that Nick Ritchie was going to be a big piece of this fourth line for the Blues this year, Alex. Big body, got a good shot, has consistently proven to be a 10 to 15 goal producer. And then on Friday, after our show, it was announced that the Blues have released Nick Ritchie from his PTO. He didn't even make it to the end of a camp.
He didn't make it to the second round of cuts.
Your guy, Leo Loof, lasted longer on the Blues roster this preseason than Nick Ritchie did.
Did you see my guy Leo Loof pick up an assist the other day?
He's gone now.
Well, he's in the minors. Yeah. He'll be back.
Maybe. Well, I don't know that they're going to have a roster spot for him.
Well, they don't have roster spots for anybody right now.
Alex, what happened here?
I think we got too far out of our ahead of our skis with Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie looked good in his preseason games that he played. He's picked up a couple of assists. He got into a fight. He was physical. But what I overlooked and what some might have got too overhyped about is Nick Ritchie. His pace didn't match with some of these other guys on this roster. At least that's what I've been told. Nick Ritchie, as good as he was, when you're playing on a fourth line that also has Oscar Sundqvist, that also has Alexei Toropchenko, your role is to sustain puck zone time. And if you can't keep up pace, well, then you're going to get outplayed and you're going to be on the other side of the ice when the opposition's trying to score. And I think that's what fell victim to. Now, Craig Berube used the line that, look, we have other guys that we like. And I mean, he's not wrong. Like, they really like Nikita Alexandrov. They really like Nathan Walker. I know that sounds insane to say, but the Blues like the way Nathan Walker plays. And if you look at both of those guys and how they play, they're fast and they keep up pace. And I think that's what Nick Ritchie fell victim to, not being at the same level as some of these other guys in terms of pace of play.
So we had a conversation on Friday about, what do you do? Like, if Nick Ritchie ends up making this team, you're going to have to either send Jake Neighbors down to the AHL or lose, most likely, one of Walker Alexandrov by sending them through waivers. Is that worth it? And I think the Blues decided, because of the way that they had seen Nick Ritchie play, for all of the pluses that he brings to the lineup, there are a few negatives. And I think they ultimately came to the conclusion of, okay, is Nick Ritchie a big enough upgrade from what we currently view Jake Neighbors to be, to lose one of the other fourth line players for us, like a Nikita Alexandrov or a Nathan Walker?
Yeah.
And they said no. Mm-hmm. And I think the guy that you really say that about is Nikita Alexandrov.
Yeah.
Alexandrov has the potential to be a fourth line center for you this year. We all know. We're all very excited about Oscar Sundqvist being back. My hope is that this dude plays 82 games fully healthy. The overwhelming likelihood is that he's going to have to miss 20 to 25 games due to injury or rest, because that's where he's at this point in his career. And when he is out of the lineup, Nick Ritchie can't play center for you. You're probably not going to have Jake Neighbors playing center for you. Alexei Toropchenko, that's not the role for him. So who is going to play center? Well, at that point in time, you'd probably be without both Alexandrov and Nathan Walker. So now you're just kind of up a creek without a paddle. Mm-hmm. So what they are going to do instead, I believe, Alex, I could be wrong here because I thought they were going to keep Nick Ritchie. I think they'll keep Alexandrov on the roster. And they'll just use him as their 13th forward. The guy's upside is as a fourth-line player. Mm-hmm. He's not somebody that projects to be a top-9 winger or a top-9 player at any point in his career. He's a fourth-line player, and you live with it. So you have Jake Neighbors as that fourth-line player. You get roughly the same production as you were going to get out of Nick Ritchie. And do you give a little something up in terms of the physicality? Yeah. But you also have a little bit of upside there, potentially, with Jake Neighbors, where he and Sammy Blake can swap spots in the lineup depending on who you're playing against.
And I can't get overly excited about a guy that, drops the gloves and stays physical and finishes his checks and sticks up for his teammates, because as great as that is, what's the role of this offense going to be this season? It's going to be threatening, puck possession, offensive zone time. And unfortunately, Nick Ritchie wasn't a better option for you than Jake Neighbors is. They love Jake Neighbors, and I think I got excited about Nick Ritchie and said, Jake Neighbors could go to the minors or something like that. But look, it's not happening. Jake Neighbors is going to be on this team. He's skating on this line that's going to be your fourth line once again tonight. It's Neighbors, it's Sundqvist, it's Toropchenko. And then it comes down to, does it make sense for us to have Nick Ritchie sitting in a press box, paying him the money when we lose an Alexandrov or a Nathan Walker or Mackenzie McEachran, whoever makes this squad, and they just value those three players a lot more. So for me, when you look at the roster construction, you're right. It's going to be Nikita Alexandrov's spot. Now, Nathan Walker, do they go 2 extra forwards and only 1 defenseman? Do they go 2 defensemen? That's the internal competition that's still taking place. But Nick Ritchie wasn't a centerman. Nick Ritchie was a big physical body that Craig Berube was excited about. But I think when he recognized what the speed of the Central Division is going to be this season, it makes more sense to continue to develop an Alexandrov as a 13th forward than have Nick Ritchie and Jake Neighbors being the 13th forward.
I really think this is a Jake Neighbors conversation as much as it is anything else. Because if you kept Ritchie, where's Neighbors' spot? It just doesn't exist, man.
It's 13th forward, and you're not doing that to him.
And I think there comes a point in time where they had to say to themselves, man, is this really worth it for Nick Ritchie? Like, while we all got excited about him, Jake Neighbors should be a significant piece of this team's future.
And so should Alexandrov. Like, Sundqvist might not be here beyond this season. And guess what? If he's gone next year, you're in the same predicament that you've been in for the last 2 seasons, trying to figure out, well, who's our fourth liners? Who's going to be on our fourth line? Because the hope is Jake Neighbors becomes a top 9 forward by the middle of this season or next season. And if you don't have Alexandrov, well, now we're talking about Nathan Walker, or we're talking about some of these other guys in the minors being on your fourth line. The hope is Alexandrov takes that job and runs with it when he competes with Oscar Sundqvist so that Jake Neighbors can continue to improve.
Yeah, I think that's probably what this came down to. Somebody from the 314 said, guys, how is Neighbors going to develop as a fourth liner with that kind of minutes? It's what a lot of teams do, man. Look at Robert Thomas, got third, fourth line minutes in that rookie year. What was his average time on ice? Wasn't it like 12 minutes?
It was somewhere between like 10 and 11 minutes.
This is not something that is exclusive. I actually kind of like bringing guys along. Yeah, it was 13 minutes in year one for Robert Thomas.
Boston did this with Joe Thornton when they drafted him first overall back in the 90s. Like, he was a fourth-line player.
We talked about this last week with Boston, doing this with Trent Frederick as well.
And Ryan O'Reilly did it with Colorado when they drafted him. Like, this is how the process actually goes. You start as a fourth-liner, and you earn more responsibility throughout the season.
And that's what I was going to say, too, is your hope is he's starting on the fourth line, but 20 games in, there's no threshold on it, but say 20 games in, your hope is that he's played well and he outplays maybe a Sammy Blais, who's a fringe third liner right now. And that's not a shot against Sammy Blais.
Or forces a Kapanen or a Saad down.
Yeah, and there's a higher ceiling for Jake Neighbors, and I think the Blues think that. So your hope is that he earns that ice time, plays well on the fourth line, and then takes the jobs of somebody else on one of those wings at some point this season.
Alex, one thing that I am going to be watching for tonight as we have Blues versus Blue Jackets. Pregame with you, starting at 5 o'clock, an early one for this one.
Love me some 5 o'clock pregames.
Another battle of the blue.
Well, we've already reigned supreme. There's no reason to do the Blue Jackets anymore. We know who the superior blue is.
Well, as we go into this game tonight, there's not a ton that I need to learn at this point about the Blues. In preseason action, at least. But Torrey Krug's expected to see his first action in a preseason game. That'll be interesting to watch. When you look at what they've done offensively so far in the preseason, Alex, it's been a little concerning in terms of the number of shots they've put on net. Here are their totals of shots in their first 5 preseason games. 15, 25, 13, 21, 23. They have not exceeded 25 shots in any individual preseason game so far. That is not the end of the world. We talked about this earlier. Spring training stats, they don't matter. I don't even look at them. Half of the time, you've got guys on the ice right now that aren't even going to see a single minute of action for your NHL team this year.
Yeah, Tanner.
So it's not the end-all, be-all. But against a team like Columbus, who's not particularly good, it'd be really nice to see the Blues put up like a representative night offensively, especially now that you have your power play guy at the back end with Torrey Krug.
These last 3 preseason games, you've got tonight against Columbus, you've got Thursday versus Dallas, and then Saturday against Chicago. If we don't see more shot production, more volume of shots from the Blues, I'm going to hit the red alarm bells, because tonight is probably the most talented group of 6 defensemen we've seen all preseason. You've got 3 legit forwards that could be opening night lines for you. Now, I know Bolduc, Dean, they're not making the team, but that's a line that Blues have loved right now, playing with Kapanen. And you're going up against a Columbus Blue Jackets team that's actually suiting up some really good players. Laine, Goudreau, they're playing in this one. I think their top 4 defensemen are playing. The problem with the Blues is it's been isolated periods, where one period they've only got 4 shots on goal, and then another period they've get 10 shots on goal, and then another period it's 2 shots on goal. There's got to be some sustained offensive zone time. And now that you've got Krug, Perunovic, all in the lineup tonight, Justin Falk as well, I'm expecting to see more shot production from the blue line, which creates more offense. And if we don't, there's going to be a lot more concern about this team, because you're not winning on your defense. And if you're not putting up at least 25 to 30 shots on goal, then this Blues team's going to be in this purgatory again that I'm not sure they can get out of.
Blues versus Blue Jackets coming up at 6 o'clock. Pregame coverage with Alex Ferrario will come your way right here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN, beginning at 5. Coming up next, it's time to give you our results from the Football Pick'em Challenge. A lot was on the line this weekend. It came down to the wire to find out who's going to be punished tomorrow in our Football Pick'em after the first month of our picks. We'll tell you who that is coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. So your home has made you equity rich on paper. You're planning on using that cash to retire. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you just want to downsize into a place that's paid off. Good for you. But the longer that you wait, the greater chance higher interest rates could chip away at your home's value. While your home value is still high, it is time to act now, and you can do so with Truehold.com. They'll buy your home now, and you can stay in that home for as long as you'd like. Truehold will buy your home for its best current value, and you get to bank all the cash now, and that cash is yours to do whatever you'd like with. Truehold will then take care of your property taxes, your insurance, and all of the upkeep, so don't miss out on this opportunity. You can cash out on your equity right now and continue to stay in your home for as long as you'd like as a renter. Visit Truehold.com. You'll discover how much they'll buy your home for today based on its best current value and not what's coming. Call 1-855-300-9993, or you can visit them at Truehold.com for the smarter and faster way to cash out on your home's full value without having to move. That's Truehold.com. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. I can't believe I agreed to this. Cannot believe I agreed to it. We've got our football pick'em reveal to give to you. If you've been waiting for this today, I don't blame you. It was a big weekend for T-Bone, Alex, and myself. We went into the weekend. I needed to first get all of my picks correct, basically. That was an important piece to this. But
so you lost before it began.
I could technically lose 1 point, and then if the one of you, went 0-3, I could still be alive. So that was in play as well. So let's start with Alex, who gave his first pick, and we all kind of liked what he had to offer. Here was his first pick on Friday.
I believe Houston is the better team in this one, and +3 is the underdog on home field against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the reports are now that they don't trust Najee Harris anymore, and they're looking for another running back. I'm gonna back Houston here and say +3. That's my number one pick.
There's a pass, beautiful ball, Collins, and he's gonna waltz in, touchdown.
What I meant was that's my most confident pick, the number one pick. So 3 points for Alex.
No, that was 1 point. But you did get the point nonetheless, and that was an impressive pick. Texans ended up winning 30-6.
Yeah.
That had to make you feel good.
It did. I was safe in the afternoon. That's what felt good.
Your second pick.
Not so much.
didn't quite go so well. You had the Dolphins in that game.
I'm taking the Miami Dolphins. I don't understand how they're a 3-point underdog. Sound like BK right now. At least you get one of them right. I do too. I get it's in Buffalo. I get that the Dolphins defense is the most concerning part of their team, but I don't know how the Buffalo defense, Jordan Poyer's not playing in this game. I don't know how they're going to stop this off.
2nd and 6. Josh looking down the sideline. It's Diggs. He is able to get away from those 2 tacklers, and no one's going to touch him the rest of the way. Touchdown, Buffalo.
So, T-Bone, tell me if this is right. Technically, I fell victim to the BKO because when I picked it, he said, well, there goes my pick. So I fell victim to the BKO. I should have flipped it when he said that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But instead, you said, I
Lean into it. Lean into it. Yeah, that's always good.
So Alex started the weekend.
For some reason, I still look to you for my football advice, and I'm not going to do that anymore, man.
But you did have 1 point.
Yep.
Which basically kept you safe.
Yeah, that was 11 points for me, and BK, the only way he could catch me was to win out. So I pretty much knew I was safe.
T-Bone started his weekend on Saturday. He had a couple of college football picks that he wanted to get out of the way. He was hoping, by Saturday night, I'm going to be in the clear.
Sipping that martini.
Started with Georgia.
My number 1 pick, I'm going to go to some SEC football. Guys, I got... They got throttled last week in their SEC opener. Only 14.5 on the road. I think Georgia comes to play in their SEC game, so I'm going to go with the Georgia Bulldogs minus 14.5 on the road.
I actually don't like that one. I think that's
congrats, man. You just won 2.
Now it's Ashford again. And touchdown, Auburn.
Shouldn't have brought Ray Charles into that, man.
He didn't know who it was.
Yeah, he leaned into it by playing the music. That's brutal. That's a brutal way to go.
Well done. That's how I play these things too. So that's why he struggled this week. Speaking of struggling.
Yeah.
I'm going Washington minus 19 at Arizona. Arizona's 3-1 or 4-0, but it's a fraudulent record. So I like Washington minus the points, 19 at Arizona.
Touchdown, Arizona.
How about those Wildcats?
What the heck was that?
He really went for it. I respect that.
Let's just say I did not get to relax on Sunday like I wanted to.
How many times have I told you, don't go those 19-point spreads, man?
So T-Bone started the weekend 0 for 2, both of which happened on Saturday. He had a long wait on Sunday.
Ooh, buddy.
I also had a long wait because I started out my weekend by doing this with my college football pick. I've got 2 college football picks. Alex, you give me A or B.
I'm not helping you.
I'm not helping you. That's how you're going to get one right.
Yeah,
you need to pick it.
Michigan is one of the selections, minus 17. The other one would be USC.
Dude, you're like hanging on by a thread, and
Minus
you're taking a minus 17 and minus 21.5 picks. Should have went with the 21.
So because it's fun, it's the game that everybody's going to be watching going into the weekend, and I'm here for the content.
We'll see if it's fun next week.
I'm taking USC minus the 21.5.
4th down and 5. Sanders sprints out of the pocket, looking. Touchdown, Ferrario Miller. Wow, this kid's electric.
I didn't even know Omarion Miller was a person prior to this weekend. He finished the game with 196 yards. Alex, do you know how many yards he had coming into Saturday?
0.
He didn't have a catch. 0.
Well,
to peek behind the curtain.
He was winning in the first half.
I was doing play-by-play, and all I saw was a text was, "Who is this guy?"
21-0.
And then all of a sudden, BK just the bed.
How do you not cut? They were up 34-7, and they didn't cover. They barely won.
Hey, buddy, it was only your 1-point game, though. Like, the others are more important.
All right, well, we continued. I decided to take an NFL team that lost by 50 last week, and that didn't go well for me either. There was a team last week in the NFL that lost by 50 points. They are favored this weekend on the road by 3.5 points. Not just the 3, but I've also got the hook in there. And I will be taking the Denver Broncos this week on the road at Chicago minus the 3.5 points to cover the spread as my single most confident pick going into this upcoming weekend. Give me the Broncos. Let's ride.
This one's on the way, and it is good. And the Broncos take the lead. points.
Way to go, man. Way to go.
Yeah, technically picked the right side.
Yeah,
but
you actually picked the right team.
That hook, you mentioned it. You knew it was going to get you.
How about them Broncos?
I can't decide if I should have been excited about the fact that they came back or disappointed by the fact that they weren't able to finish the job by winning by more than 3.
Yeah, they finished the job. They picked
I've
up
been
a
disappointed.
dub.
So
picked up
I
a
went into
dub.
last night 0-2, which meant I was going to be punished.
Well, not necessarily.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, it guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed my
It was
fate.
over. It was over.
So if you were wondering, hey, who's getting punished this week, boys? Come on, you never had a real doubt, did you?
No.
So I went into Sunday Night Football saying, you know what, screw my pick. I'm excited for my Chiefs to look great on Sunday Night Football. I'm going to hear about the Swifties in the third and fourth quarter because this thing's going to be over by halftime.
He was
You're
having
gonna
the
see Travis
Swifties.
Kelce on the sideline, just looking up at the love of his life. Hit it, T-Bone.
I'm going to the Sunday Night Football game, and I feel bad for doing this because that means I got to watch this stinker.
God bless it. No, man.
I'm going Chiefs -9 versus the Jets.
That's a repeat
They are
pick for
a
me.
bad football team, are the New York Jets.
That's my number 3
They're
pick.
going to get throttled by Kansas City.
That's my
You know
3
what I
play.
should do?
Go the Jets.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, God.
Should I? I like the Chiefs.
Oh, well, yeah, we do too.
That means you guys are screwed.
Oh, no, not on this one.
I also liked the Dolphins, so your 2 and 3 points are done.
Yeah, but I got
We know.
1 point.
Take the Bills, take the Jets, ladies and gentlemen. Those are winners for you. I'm going to take the Jets.
What?
Dude, you're going to lose, man. Go to the college game or something. Pick another game.
For the first down. Wilson throwing end zone touchdown. Alan Lazard. What a drive.
Again, we fell victim to the BKO. He knew that was a losing opportunity, and it flipped on him. You knew that was just, there was no good coming
the
from
reason
that.
Zach Wilson turned into Aaron Rodgers last night?
Yeah. And impressed Taylor Swift, I heard.
Yeah.
No, he was impressing Travis Kelce's mom.
And
That's
all
what he
the
was going for,
Swifties.
let's be honest.
All the Swifties that tuned in for their first ever NFL game now believe Zach Wilson is
And let's
better
be
than
honest,
Patrick Mahomes.
Zach Wilson is closer in age to a lot of the Swifties than probably the other quarterback.
I'm nervous. I'm not going to lie to you guys.
I would be too. I opened it up yesterday to look at it. People saw the picture. BK tweeted it out. There's a lot of wires that go into this.
Yeah, what the hell? This is a medical device.
Well, that's what all of them are.
Do I need to sign a waiver or something?
No, because it says
say you approve of it right now.
It's
That'd be great,
approved over the counter. No, we already have audio of him approving of the punishments earlier in the year. Yeah. It's an over the counter thing that I can purchase. I bought it off of Amazon.
So what is this thing specifically that I'm going to... So the way that this is going to work, by the way, for anybody listening right now, if you want to tune in tomorrow, and you can check us out on YouTube. Our studio cams are brought to you by Air Alliance Team. 101 ESPN STL on YouTube is where you can go to find it. I will be punished throughout the show tomorrow. At the end of every segment, I will just get a quick jolt to the stomach.
I'm so excited.
My understanding from what Alex has mentioned is that this is basically simulating labor.
Yeah. So it's called a TENS unit. Don't ask me what it's an anagram for, but essentially what it is people use this to stimulate pain. So essentially, like if you've got a lower back issue or if you've got like issues in your legs, what this device is for is you put it in that area when there's throbbing pain and it kind of sends a shock wave to your head so that the pain resides. At least that's what I'm understanding with the videos that I've watched. So essentially it's supposed to relieve pain, but instead we're instigating pain.
What could go wrong?
And people do use this. Like it is used to simulate contractions for men if they want to live through it.
Yeah, BK clearly wanted to live through it by his picks.
A TENS unit works by delivering a low-voltage electric impulse to stimulate nerves, which can be used to stimulate contractions. However, their functions are different.
Yeah, this is the part that I'm trying to figure out because there's a burst mode, there's a normal mode, there's some letters in there, there's some like watts that I got to figure out. So I gotta read up tonight to find out what makes the most sense.
When it comes to buying a TENS unit to simulate labor pain, you need to think about how long your labor is.
Well, and ask Kara how long labor is, because it goes for a while.
54 hours.
Okay, so 54 hours. Technically, we should just have it going through the whole segment, and BK should power through like our lovely wives had to do.
Somebody asked, can we stay live on camera during the breaks? If you watch our show on YouTube, you will see that T-Bone is the only producer that does this for you. Throughout the breaks, instead of it showing you a black screen that shows 101 ESPN as that break, T-Bone, being the overachieving producer that he is, does a great job of showing you the overhead shot of what we're doing in here during the studio. So
we're live 24/7.
You don't hear the
BK
audio, but you can see the video of what's taking place in the studio afterwards. So you'll see that tomorrow.
So can I ask, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at right now in terms of, like, nerves?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about my excitement level.
Oh, well, I know. You and I are at like a 50.
Yeah. 8? That sounds about right.
What do you think you'll be at tomorrow when we put these pieces on? Because you have to, it's like they're like little patches with the wiring on them that goes to the unit. So, like, you stick them on.
Is it on my back?
No, it's on your stomach.
Stomach?
Yeah, you put it on your stomach.
Well, you can't put it on my heart, apparently.
No, yeah. You don't have a pacemaker or anything, right?
No.
Okay, and it says not to put it on your throat, so it won't do that.
No Adam's apple?
Yeah, well, it won't fit up there anyway.
Go ahead and take the joke for you.
Yeah, it won't fit up there anyway. I wasn't going down that path. But, yeah, no, so it's going to go on your stuff. Should we have the shirt off so we could see you flex the whole time, or should we just keep the shirt on?
We don't need that. Somebody said T-Bone sounds pretty cocky for a man who came within 1 point of the Broncos to being subjected to labor pains himself.
T-Bone almost lost.
Yeah.
I was safe. Like, as soon as I got that Broncos pick, I was good.
So was I.
Or, I'm sorry, you
got one
The
correct.
Texans, yeah.
Had the Broncos won by 4 instead of 3, I can't imagine what T-Bone would be saying today about Patrick Mahomes. Because Mahomes had a clear path into the end zone to cover for the Chiefs. But instead, he decided to slide at the, 2-yard line after getting the first down to end the game and effectively win that thing for the Chiefs last night. Tanner would have been the most upset you have ever seen him on the air. But instead, it didn't matter because I sucked as I
could watch that game without thinking that I could be going through the pains of labor. And it felt good. Because I'm not going to lie, when that game was, what was it, 21-7 or 28-7, BK sent a text and said, I'm getting punished. And I jokingly said, oh, there's the second half. And sure enough, the stupid Bears tried to blow that damn game.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for going for it on 4th and 1, they kick a field goal, I'm 90% sure Denver goes down and scores a touchdown and wins by 4.
We'll have to tweet out tonight the exact time we're going to. Oh, no, well, it's at the end of every segment. So people need to stay tuned from 11 to 2. Because you'll be seeing it at the end of every segment. How long do you want it to go for?
Oh, just like 10, 15 seconds. I think
you should have went lower.
I was about to say, I think we'll
do like 10 seconds, yeah.
You'll get a little click and
you're
basically tasing me at the end of every segment.
Well, I didn't want to say that because now we're going to have to sign something. But yeah, technically that's what this is. But hey, again, over-the-counter purchase, people use this, just not in the same way that we are using this.
Coming up next, St. Louis City SC's offense appears to be back on track, and that is scary for the rest of MLS. We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you, proud to talk about my new dentist, 100 West Dental. Look, I can speak to this because I have gone through the nightmare with teeth. You want to make sure that the dentist that you're going to is actually making sure that you are healthy, that your mouth is healthy, because we've all been to the dentist. Sometimes it's just the cleaning, you get up and you walk out, but are you getting the x-rays that go into it? Are you getting the communication with your dentist to make sure that everything is looking good? Because I didn't, and then next thing I know, I had a bad dentist for a long period of time. I had a tumor in my mouth. I lost 7 teeth, had to go through some massive surgery. It's a nightmare. So make sure you're doing the proper coverage when you go to your dentist, and that's 100 West Dental, because they're trying to bring in people that are anxious about going to the dentist. Specifically, guys, if you don't like going to the dentist or sitting down, this is the preventative procedure that is going to make sure that there's no early detections going on in your mouth, making sure that everything is healthy. The best part about this, too, is they make so much of of this easy. They got a brand new office, most modern technology that you're going to find in a dentist spot. So give them a call today or check them out online. 100westdental.com, 636-585-0100.
Tara Henderson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals beat the Reds yesterday in the regular season finale 4-3 as they finished the year 71-91. And the MLB playoffs will start tomorrow, and you can hear Game 1 between the Phillies and Marlins here on 101 ESPN with pregame coverage starting at 6:30. Tonight, Blues back in action, and we have that game for you here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Pregame coverage starts at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey joins Chris Carber for Puck Drop at 6. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent Mayor Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
It's a super header from Savadinorin. What a season. What a goal and what a moment for St. Louis.
Stroud 2-0. They played themselves into it, SKC. They were all over the place defensively. And Stroud is off the bench. And on the score sheet, 2-0.
St. Louis are absolutely feeling it now.
And the ball back for Klaus. 3-0. It's raining goals at City Park. Number 1 in the West. With an exclamation point tonight.
Stroud, Klaus on a drive. Oh my! That may be the pick of the bunch from Klaus. A stunning goal. St. Louis City in this form are absolutely unstoppable. Top of the West and staying there.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that audio courtesy of Apple TV, as St. Louis City SC gets a win 4-1 against Sporting KC over the weekend. They wrap up the number 1 seed in the Western Conference throughout the postseason. They also have the most wins, the first expansion franchise to have 17 wins in their inaugural season in the history of MLS. Alex, we mentioned earlier, somebody asked, how does this compare to the likes of the Kraken or the Vegas Golden Knights as an expansion team in the NHL? It remains to be seen with the Vegas Golden Knights. They were able to then go on to the Stanley Cup. The postseason success is really what ended up having their trajectory so high. But if you're talking regular season, that's the comparison. It's the closest thing that you've got to what you're witnessing right now with St. Louis City SC. And what I was most impressed by over the weekend, this offense got back on track. They finally were able to start the goal production once again. They got up to 4 goals. The last time that they had scored more than 2 in a game was early August against Austin. This is the type of thing that we had seen from them early on in the season that made them so much fun to watch. We're finally starting to see it again, and João Klaus being that guy, that's a game changer in the playoffs.
Well, and the part, too, that you comp to that season with the Vegas Golden Knights and the excitement with it is the city excitement around it. And I think that's what made Vegas so much bigger also, was because the city was like dying for that sport to show up, and it shows up and it was successful. And then welcome City SC, a city that's been dying to get soccer into it. A large group of fans have been wanting to see this. You get it and you're successful. And you mentioned the offense. That's the selling point. I mean, for the longest time this season, Roman Berkey was the selling point because it felt like at the beginning of the year, he was keeping City SC in matches that they didn't deserve to be in.
For sure.
And then the offense got accustomed to what they were doing, and then next thing you know, they exploded. Well, no coincidence, the Vegas Golden Knights were that exact same team. Goaltending was their starting point with Marc-Andre Fleury, but they were 5th in that NHL season in terms of goals scored. The excitement surrounding that team is so eerily similar to Vegas Golden Knights because of the offense, because of the types of players that they brought in, because of the way that they have had success with the season. And I'm telling you, the cherry on top for this to have what Vegas had, and for the front office for the City SC to say, let's keep this train rolling, is to have a deep postseason run.
Yeah, and I think this team is well-balanced and is going to be capable of doing that, and it's going to be fun to watch the playoffs come through here in St. Louis because when do they have the offensive power? You mentioned Berkey. I mean, I think Berkey should be getting votes for MVP. That guy's been incredible here with St. Louis City SC. And I was one of those that was critical of what the defense had been for this team, and I think it is starting to come together. Yeah, it is really coming together as they're getting healthy again. And now that they are fully healthy, everything just seems to be clicking. The defense is good. You've got that Berkey, who's an MVP caliber candidate in net. The midfield's been good, where Leuven's been great as well. Arguably, if he stays healthy all year, could be an MVP candidate as well. And then on the top, you got Adeniran, who's played really well. Klaus has played really well. And we haven't even mentioned Nico. And Nico's been kind of pushed to the bench because of how deep this team is. And Gioacchini had a really good year also.
Yeah, I mean, think about that for a second. Nico, midway through the season, I don't know where he finished in terms of goals scored in MLS, but I think it was like top 15 in MLS and goals scored this year. Didn't even play in this game against Sporting KC because of how incredibly deep they are. That he got in late as a sub, I guess. That speaks highly to the amount of depth that they were able to add to this roster. I mean, Sam Adeniran at one point in time was down with their minor league team.
Yeah, they while they were dealing with that injury to Klaus, I think it was like right when that happened. They sent him. They didn't even put him in the minors. They sent him on loan to somebody in the lower league.
Man.
They basically said, "We need you to go work on things." And I remember at the time when I saw that, I was like, "Well, they've given up on Adeniran because why else? Why else do you loan him out when you're dealing with an injury to your top goal scorer?" And it's been the best thing for him. He's come back and he's been incredible ever since that. Almost the motivation, or they did have him work on stuff. I can't remember who he got loaned to, but
San Antonio, right?
That's right. Yeah, San Antonio. And whatever that was, whether that was a wake-up call to Adeniran or he just needed to get more playing time to get to this point this season, it's been one of the, nobody's talking about it, but it's been one of the moves that saved them. And then also guys like Jackson and Yarrow stepping up in a time when they were dealing with injuries to come up and be able to take
Jackson,
a starting
what
role.
A find by him, dude.
He's
that
been
guy's
great.
A stud.
So they are loaded in terms of their talent that they've got. And I hate to say this on an expansion team and in year one, it is championship or bust for City SC. That's the way it feels around this team right
Already
now.
a successful season, though. No matter what
100%
happens from
agree
here,
there.
this was an overwhelming success of a season. But you're right. The expectations now flip. Like, when you get into the playoffs now as a team that had this kind of a regular season, now it becomes, hey, capitalize on this, dude. Like, this does not happen very often where you have a real chance to be able to go out there and win a cup. And if you're City, if you're in the front office, coach, staff, player right now, you got to be thinking that's what our expectation is going into the playoffs. We're the best team in the Western Conference. We're 11-3-2 at home this season. We've got home field advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs up until we get to the actual cup final. This is a team that can do it. And now you've got the offense back on track. Like I mentioned, that they were not scoring the same goals. The goal production had really started to come down in a significant way in the last couple of months. Go back to the beginning of the season, they were winning games with 3-4 goals regularly. That press was giving people problems, and they were able to have some of their stars really kind of emerge. We're starting to see that again. And on top of that, your defense, because your offense was so good early on, it bought your defense time to figure it out. Now your defense is starting to play up the way that it did midway through the season, and your offense is getting back on track. And oh, by the way, as T-Bone said, Roman Berkey has been one of the best players in MLS this year, and you've still got him as a fail-safe behind you. I can't give them enough credit for what they were able to accomplish this year. Players all the way up to the ownership group, a spectacular season by St. Louis City SC. They still got a couple of games left to finish this thing out in the regular season, and then we're getting to the playoffs, man. It's going to be a lot of fun to go out there. I'm going to try to get to a couple of games this year in the playoffs just because of that's going to be an unbelievable scene. Especially, and we mentioned this, a month ago now? With the Cardinals being as bad as they were, City had a chance to be able to capitalize on that. Now hosting Western Conference playoff games, you'll be able to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Especially now that the Cardinals have officially been eliminated and they're done for the month of October. Coming up next, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Hey, attention to Scott Air Force Base. For service members, for their families, for anybody else currently on base, you can join the Fast Lane this Thursday for a special military appreciation live broadcast. It's going to be taking place during their show, 2 to 6 p.m. It's a special Fast Lane military appreciation live broadcast on Thursday at the Exchange at Scott Air Force Base. It's all brought to you by Budweiser and Air Comfort Service Heating and Cooling. Alex, I did want to finish things off by getting back to the Cardinals. Today is technically the first day of the offseason for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Why haven't they made a signing yet, right? BK?
This isn't how we all expected it to take place. I thought when October came around, we would be talking about the 2013 Cardinals offense, basically, and how that was going to propel them into the World Series. It didn't exactly go that way.
Yeah.
Almost.
5 days from now, I thought we'd be talking about another wild card exit.
5 days, more like 2 days.
True.
So they're eliminated. They had a terrible season in every possible way, and they deserve all the criticism that came along with that. Every single bit of it. Anything that you want to throw their way, they deserve it. They earned that this season. But this offseason, they have a chance to change all of it if they make the right moves and they get themselves back into contention in 2024. I expect them and believe that they will end up doing that. I think they're embarrassed. I think they're pissed. I think everything you want to throw at them for how they could feel about this season, they do. They feel that way. They have to use that as reasons for getting aggressive, reasons to do things that they don't typically do. So, Alex, as I was reading yesterday from Derek Gould, and he wrote this, it caught my attention. Quote, the list of free agent pitchers that the Cardinals intend to pursue include Phillies ace Aaron Nola and Twins veteran starter Sonny Gray. That is according to Derek Gould's multiple sources. The list of interest also is much longer than that. They have advertised adding at least three pitchers from the outside. Trades and foreign markets are other potential sources that they have already started vetting, end quote. Again, that all comes from Derek Gould. Alex, if the Cardinals were to add Aaron Nola and Sonny Gray this offseason and throw in whoever you want as that third starter, somebody that you aren't guaranteed to be a part of their rotation, but like a swingman this offseason, how do you think Cardinals fans would view that? Would that be the offseason of the Cardinals were aggressive and they fixed their pitching issues, starting rotation issues?
I mean, I would say it is, but I don't think Cardinals fans will. I think Cardinals fans are down on Aaron Nola. And maybe the postseason can sway a lot of people's opinions, but it seems beyond the text line that we see on social media and just talking with people who are fans of the Cardinals, Aaron Nola feels like a Cardinal-y move. And that means you're going after somebody who did it in the past. You're hoping that you can recapture some of that glory for the rest of the remainder of his contract, and it doesn't live up to expectations. I think the only way people are excited this offseason about what the Cardinals do and say they win all in is Blake Snell or Yamamoto. I think that's the only way you're going to look at this Cardinals offseason from the outside. I think Aaron Nola and Sonny Gray would be a very successful offseason. But Cardinals fans, it's Snell, Yamamoto, or nothing.
I'm kind of with Alex. I think there'd be a portion of the Cardinals fan base, maybe not everybody, but a decent chunk of the fan base that would be somewhat underwhelmed, maybe a little disappointed by a Nola and Gray offseason, and then whoever that swing guy is. Because I think you're right. I think Nola has taken on this kind of, well, that's clearly the second tier, and that's the tier that if the Cardinals do go big, that's the tier they always shop in. And it's not they're not going after a Snell, they're not going after a Yamamoto. The guys are going to be super expensive and are in that number one tier, and are honestly probably the only two guys that can be looked at right now in their respective careers as potential number ones. Nola's a 2, Gray's a 2, and I think the Cardinals fans would look at that and they would say, yeah, and I agree with you. I think should be viewed as a good offseason, but I don't know if it'll be viewed as a great offseason. And I think that's the expectation from the fan base is we're ready for that great offseason that is going to put us back into not just contention for the playoffs, but contention for a World Series.
I've said all along, I think these are the two guys that make the most sense for the Cardinals. Now, you can take that in any direction you want. It fits their criteria that they've had in previous years. Sonny Gray's different. I know people are going to laugh at it because Sonny Gray is not a household name. Man, Sonny Gray is a really good starting pitcher. And if they add him to this rotation, he would have been your best starting pitcher that you've had in the last 4 years. Like since Jack Flaherty's 2019 season, Sonny Gray over the last 3 years, including, that would be the best starter on the Cardinals. So, and listen, the Cardinals haven't had a great rotation in that stretch, but he should be viewed as a massive upgrade. I think it's really a question about Nola. And I think the excitement surrounding Nola will come down entirely to what he does this postseason.
Yep.
If Nola's good in the postseason, he goes out there and he shoves, and the Phillies make it to the NLCS. They end up losing, but it's not because Nola got rocked, but he goes out there and gives them like 6 strong innings in his 2 starts in the NLCS. I think Cardinals fans will be back on board. But if he goes out there and he doesn't perform well, and it looks kind of like it has to the second half of the season, I think most Cardinals fans will be sitting here saying, hey, are we buying a declining asset for market price right now? And is that really the smart way to go about this?
And you know what the frustrating part of that all is? If it doesn't go well and they do sign Nola and he struggles next year, John Mozeliak and company are going to be like, what? We did what you wanted. We did what you wanted. You wanted us to go out there and get one of the best free agents, and we did that.
It's a big Wednesday, because Wednesday is Nola starts game 2, Gray starts game 2 for their respective team in the playoffs. And both of those could be starting games that are pivotal win or go home games, depending on how game 1 goes for both teams.
Huge postseason for the Cardinals, even though they're not involved in it, because a lot of the guys that they could acquire this offseason are currently involved in this year's postseason. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you missed anything from today's show, check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. And the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Be sure to tell all your friends, hey, if you hate BK, like many of you do, me, I will be punished tomorrow throughout the entirety of the show on our YouTube stream. You can watch as I am completely miserable by feeling the effects of a child labor.
I was about to say naked.
And you told Kara what she did was easy.
Yeah, I obviously did that for sure.
We'll find out.
If you guys want to watch that, tomorrow is when you can do so. So tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. You're on 101 ESPN.